the much larger population of Asia in relation to Europe now has real significance. And again, it goes back to this issue of then how do we think about that first part like of the 20th century and that period in which China is absent and India is ruled by the British. It's a kind of, I mean, I'm still struggling to understand how I quite frame this myself, but I think we just need, particularly in Europe, to see how odd those centuries of European dominance, particularly the latter part of it, actually.
They were the exception rather than the norm, yeah.
And I do think that the world becoming not just more China-centric, but more Asian-centric is actually quite central to the period in which we now live. And I think this goes back to like fossil fuels, particularly oil, but not only in an interesting way, because then we can say, well, look, the really odd thing was that first Britain with industrialisation via coal, and then the United States and Russia, Soviet Union as oil producers shaped this world of high per capita fossil fuel energy consumption without that much participation from the two most populous countries in the world. And once that changes, and once they're on trajectories in a fossil fuel world to being high per capita energy consumers, not that they're quite there yet, but in India's case, that is that's just radically different than the world that came before it.
Thank you for listening to The Interview. For more compelling conversations, search for The Interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts. You'll find episodes from the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, British Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, and Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft AI, plus many others. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
From the BBC, that was
Well, from goodbye for now from the CBC to hello this morning from the CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for joining us. I'm Marcy, and we're live in downtown Winnipeg. Corey's looking at me like, yeah, you said that, lady. Corey Funk is our director of the show. That's Corey. You're with 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. You are on CBC. Corey directs the program. Also, will cover the commute. Abby Adiemi, good morning to you. Abby's behind our controls, our senior tech, and we'll cover weather on the morning show. And there's Darren Marash, also worth saying twice. Darren Marash. Darren is our producer of our YouTube stream if you're watching the show there this Friday. We're expecting sunshine. We're live in downtown Winnipeg, and this city is expecting a high of minus 19 today, with wind chill going to feel like minus 39. In Brandon, sunny as well. Your high in Westman today is a high of minus 20. Once again, with wind chills, it'll feel colder like minus 39. Also clear up north. Thompson, sunny day ahead. Winds south 20 to 40. Your high minus 16. It's going to feel like minus 37. So you have bragging rights. You're going to be warmer than us in the south here. Okay, let's go to Heather Wells, 2 minutes to 6 o'clock, and she is here with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg business leaders wanting an end to interprovincial trade barriers wonder what's happened. Ever since the United States imposed tariffs on Canada, some laws have been passed, memorandums of understanding signed, but most of the barriers remain. In fact, a new report suggests if these regulations were lifted, Manitoba's real GDP would rise 12.2% over the long run. We're going to hear more about that. As well, the city of Steinbach is considering a plan to restart a public transit system. That idea has been sitting idle since it was first recommended way back in 2006. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, in the first hour of the show, the CMU, Canadian Mennonite University, is giving Winnipeggers a good reason to tune up your vocal cords. They're hosting a community singing event in support of Minneapolis. So this is all around songs of protest. You probably heard Bruce Springsteen's new song of protest for Minneapolis this week. We'll have a conversation, though, locally about what's happening at this event. In addition, in the second hour of the show, anxiety and stress before surgery can increase the risk of complications. But the University of Manitoba professor tells us what she's been part of to help Canadians stay calm before life-changing procedures. She is one of our CBC Manitoba's Future 40 honorees. We'll meet her later. Stay with us.
Today on Q. My pen is missing.
I'm Talia Schlenger in for Tom Power. Kids in the Hall legend and TV director Bruce McCullough is back, this time with a one-man show called Dark Purple Slice. He'll tell you why he's always been drawn to finding the funny in the darker stuff of life and why gallows humor is so important.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre faces a crucial leadership test today. Party delegates in Calgary will decide whether he keeps his job. This after the Conservatives lost last spring's federal election to Mark Carney and the Liberals. Olivia Stefanovich has more.
We are united. Our movement is united, and our party is united.
Conservative Deputy Leader Melissa Lantsman urging party faithful to stand with Pierre Poilievre.
Vote yes for an affordable Canada. Yes for affordable homes. Yes for affordable food on the table. And yes to Pierre as our leader.
Poilievre became Conservative leader 4 years ago in a landslide victory. Now he's fighting to keep his job after a leadership review is triggered following last spring's federal election loss.
We love Pierre Poilievre. That's why we're here.
The decision to keep Poilievre at the helm lies in the hands of more than 2,500 delegates. After Gill from BC is one of them.
He has a great plan for Canada. That's why we love him. And we really want to make him one day Prime Minister.
Poilievre's supporters are hoping the party will break from its habit of turfing its leader after a single term, like it did with Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer.
I am so proud of our Conservative movement and so proud of our leader, Pierre.
Poilievre is ringing in some big endorsements, including former interim leader Rona Ambrose, who posted a video praising Poilievre on social media.
We will show Canadians that we can bring change to this great country.
But surviving the leadership review is one hurdle. Convincing the wider public that Poilievre should lead the country, the bigger challenge. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Calgary.
U.S. President Donald Trump is once again escalating tensions with Canada. This time he's threatening tariffs on and decertification of Canadian-made aircraft, singling out Bombardier. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins us from Washington. Willie, what exactly is the president threatening to do?
John, Donald Trump lashed out at Canada late last night, taking to social media and threatening to slap 50% tariffs on Canadian aircrafts if Canada does not fully certify a range of Gulfstream jets. He said, based on the fact that Canada has wrongfully, illegally, and steadfastly refused to certify the Gulfstream 500, 600, 700, and 800 jets, one of the greatest, most technologically advanced airplanes ever made, we are hereby decertifying their Bombardier Global Expresses and all aircraft made in Canada until such time as Gulfstream, a great American company, is fully certified, as it should have been many years ago. Now, it's unclear if Trump even has the authority to do that, but the move comes amid heightened tensions in recent weeks between Canada and the U.S. Just last night, Trump once again warned of the dangers of a Canada-China trade deal.
Canada is not doing well. They're doing very poorly, and you can't look at China as the answer.
So, Willie, let's talk about the response so far from Bombardier and beyond.
Yeah, so Bombardier issued a statement saying it was in contact with the Canadian government, but also highlighting the fact that the Montreal-based company employs more than 3,000 people across 9 states, and that its planes are fully compliant with Federal Aviation Administration regulations. The IAM union, which represents machinists and aerospace workers, says politicizing aircraft certification would set a dangerous global precedent, undermining international safety standards and putting the integrity of the aviation system at risk. And this is not the first time Trump has targeted Bombardier. During his first term, he placed 300% tariffs on the company's C-Series.
CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
Ukraine's president says he's willing to ease attacks on Russian infrastructure if the Kremlin does the same in Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky's comments follow a request by U.S. President Donald Trump urging Vladimir Putin to pause strikes as Ukraine endures a bitter cold snap. Crystal Gamansing has more from London.
Nelia Denisenko says she keeps reminding herself it's not as bad as it could be. She's handing out bowls of hot soup to her cold neighbors who have sought refuge at one of the city's warming sites. Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv, wrote on social media more than 370 multi-story buildings are still without heat. Russia has repeatedly hit Ukrainian infrastructure sites, leaving thousands to freeze in the dark for weeks. In his nightly address Thursday, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed gratitude to U.S. President Donald Trump for efforts to halt Russian strikes on energy infrastructure.
We asked President Putin if they could stop the shooting for a week. They're being hit with proportionately the kind of cold that we're being hit. It's much colder in Ukraine to start off with.
Today, the Kremlin confirmed Trump's request, but declined to comment further. Repeated Russian strikes have made it virtually impossible for crews to make needed repairs. The European Union shipped nearly 500 generators to Ukraine to help people battle the frigid cold and is looking at other energy support options. Kaya Kallis is the EU's foreign policy chief.
They are bombing Ukrainians, trying to bomb and freeze them to surrender.
Follow-up peace talks mediated by the U.S. were to take place Sunday in Abu Dhabi. However, Zelensky said the location could change. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
RCMP in Halifax are changing how they track their firearms. The move comes after the force lost track of 3 weapons for 7 months. Kayla Hounsell has more.
There was no evidence to suggest they were out in the public realm.
Constable Mandy Edwards of the Halifax RCMP acknowledges while police believed 3 unaccounted-for carbines were still in their custody somewhere, they had no idea where the guns were for 7 months. They discovered the issue during a routine audit in June 2025. Carbines are semi-automatic rifles which officers are required to sign in and out when needed.
We had never believed that they were stolen.
When CBC News asked about the long guns, Edwards confirmed the force had done a thorough search over 7 months and still could not locate them. 3.5 hours later, she said the guns had been found, and the matter had just been clerical. She said the carbines had been listed on the inventories for 2 detachments in Nova Scotia. They showed up in one detachment's audit, but because they were registered twice, showed up as missing in the other audit. Michael Arntfield is a criminology professor at Western University.
The ability of police departments to maintain accurate records and chain of custody of items in their possession is central to their authority and the public trust.
The Halifax detachment is now conducting inventory audits once a month instead of 4 times a year. It's also implemented a new system allowing officers to scan QR codes on long guns with their phones and supervisors to conduct random compliance checks from any location. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
Officials in a Northern Ontario First Nation say a parasite has been found in the community's drinking water. Dozens of people have fallen ill, and a state of emergency remains in place after failures at the water treatment plant. The CBC's Jonathan Mignot reports.
Repairs have been underway at Saskatchewan's water treatment plant for several weeks, but the facility still isn't equipped to prevent a parasite from getting into the system. The community has been in a state of emergency since January 4th. Most of the residents are now in other communities, and many are getting sick from their exposure to Cryptosporidium. Chris Thin is Saskatchewan's Director of Health. He says the official number of positive cases is likely underreported.
So it's our understanding that there may have been more community members that have actually acquired Cryptosporidium. However, we're never tested for a number of factors.
Symptoms of Cryptosporidium include diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting. Thin says most healthy people get better on their own in 2 to 3 weeks, and so far there haven't been any serious cases of illness. For some, it's bringing back bad memories. Sinclair Williams is from Saskatchewan. He still remembers an E. coli outbreak 20 years ago and has been drinking bottled water ever since. He thinks others will follow his example.
I think there's going to be a heightened sense of trauma from this, I know it's hard on them mentally, especially when the spring breakup comes along every April.
Saskatchewan evacuates every spring because of the risk of flooding. Local leaders want to move the community to higher ground, a project that's been talked about for years and is yet to happen. Jonathan Mignot, CBC News, Sudbury.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. Friday. Last Friday of January, finally. It is clear. It is minus 25. Abby with your forecast in a moment, as always. And thank you for joining us. Well, you are not impressed with property tax assessments. We're going to hear more in the news in a moment. We're going to read some of your comments this hour as well and throughout the program. So stay tuned for that. Also, to other news this hour, the CMU, Canadian Mennonite University, is giving Winnipeggers a good reason to tune up your vocal cords. They're hosting a community singing event tonight. It is in support of Minneapolis. We're going to look at the role of songs of protest this hour on Information Radio. Plus, Premier Wab Kinew weighing in on the issue of Alberta's separatism and national unity at the First Minister's meeting that is happening this week. We're going to hear more about what he had to say. So that's coming up also. First, though, more in our local news as promised. Here now is Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, some Winnipeggers are shocked by the city's assessed value of their home. The city's been mailing out proposed assessed property values for the 2027 tax year. Brian Clark lives in North Kildone and one of the areas seeing the highest increases in property prices. He says his house's estimated value is 31% higher. He doesn't understand how the city arrived at that number. Now, property values going up doesn't automatically mean higher taxes for homeowners. Homeowners do have time to dispute those estimates. So we'll hear more coming up as well. A show of interfaith solidarity at the Manitoba legislature last night as people gathered to confront Islamophobia and other forms of hate. We'll take you there in our next news at 6:30.
We're busy this half hour, but I have to slide in one comment, Heather, because you'll appreciate this.
Okay.
On assessments, Joe Dvorak wrote in, ours went up over $100,000. That's not the increase, but now it's over $100,000. That's well above the value of our property. I've been checking others, and none of them had close to that increase in our area. But then this is the part I'm smiling about. Is it because I mow the lawn too much?
I knew you were going to say that.
Maybe I should put a broken down Camaro in the front yard. We'll get to some of the comments and have a city councillor on next hour. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into what's going on weather-wise. Abby.
Yeah, good morning, Marcy. The province is waking up to a frigid, but it's going to be a beautiful day with widespread sunshine across the southern regions while we're tracking light snow moving through the north. Winnipeg right now is seeing temperatures hover between minus 26 and minus 27, with morning temperatures hovering close to minus 29 before we get to a high of minus 19 later. Light winds will come with that. The wind chill this morning feels like minus 39. And Marcy, look up Gimli this morning. Actual temperature in Gimli is around minus 36.
So very cold.
It's
all right.
cold.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank
before
you.
we turn to some more warmth in the weekend. Okay, Corey, the commute.
Quiet commute so far. Haven't heard of any major issues yet. But if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, the Olympics, Milano Cortina Games, start a week from today, and Canada is going to be expected to be among the medal leaders. But how much longer will that be the case? With funding for the country's athletes dwindling, could the idea of owning the podium be a thing of the past? Scott Reguera is up with a report, and he's starting the show with us. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
So before we get into finances, why don't we talk about results? How has Canada fared at past Winter Games?
Well, traditionally, Marcy, among the top four nations, the high water mark came in Vancouver in 2010 when Canadian athletes won 14 gold medals. That was a record for a host nation at the time. In terms of overall medals, the 29 that Canada claimed in Pyeongchang were the most ever. Now, many of the same athletes who reached the podium in Vancouver did the same in Pyeongchang. Speed skater Charles Amelin, figure skaters Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer, and freestyler Mikhail Kingsbury, to name a few. Now, Kingsbury is the only one of them set to compete in Milano Cortina, and he's already said he plans to join those others I mentioned in retirement after these Olympics are finished. That is concerning, Marcy, when you consider that at the last games in Beijing, Canada won just 4 gold medals, placing 11th among all nations. So things are not trending in the right direction.
And what do you think's behind that?
I think a lack of money. The Canadian government has not increased core funding for national sports organizations dating back to 2005. There are 60 or so organizations in the country, and while the well-heeled ones like Hockey Canada can get by without the additional help, it's close to impossible for the likes of, say, Bobsled Skeleton Canada. Now, when he learned that there would be no new money in last October's federal budget, Canadian Olympic Committee head David Shoemaker laid out the day-to-day reality for most of this country's 2,000 or so carded athletes. Here's Shoemaker speaking with BNN.
Today, an athlete in Canada that's nationally carded athlete, they earn roughly $2,200 a month, so less than minimum wage. And then what we're increasingly finding is that these athletes, they're being welcomed to the national team to represent this country, and then they're being told increasingly that they have to pay team fees in the tens of thousands of dollars. We at the Canadian Olympic Committee are doing everything we can do to increase the amount of money that we generate so that we can try to offset some of these challenges, but it's not enough, and we need the federal government to help partner with us.
Shoemaker says the COC has been asking Ottawa for $144 million, a one-time contribution that he calls modest and that he says offers a great return on investment.
So in the absence of new government money then, Scott, what are athletes doing to try and stay competitive?
Well, it's case by case. If you look at Canada's ski jumpers, for instance, they've moved the whole team to Slovenia, where there is proper infrastructure and closer proximity to world-class competition. They've discovered it's actually cheaper to do that than remain here in Canada. But accommodation, transportation, and even coaching through those team fees David Shoemaker just mentioned, well, that's largely up to athletes to pay for. The growing crisis, Marcy, has led NSOs like Rugby Canada to get really creative. Many of our listeners will remember that before last year's Women's World Cup in England, the team crowdfunded $1 million to pay for a month-long training camp in the UK before that tournament got underway. While doing it, they gained online support from the likes of Shania Twain and financial support from the Tragically Hip, who co-created a limited edition T-shirt to help raise funds. And you know, in the end, it worked. Canada's largely amateur squad made it all the way to the final against their English hosts, all of whom were paid professionals. Following the World Cup, Marcy, veteran Tyson Bukaboom talked to CBC about how succeeding in her sport is a double-edged sword.
We have to keep playing well, but we need more time and more resources to do that. The two influence each other massively. We do an incredible job as players, playing as much rugby as we can, but there's positives and negatives to everything we do. If we can keep pushing and keep performing and keep demanding more, we're going to continue to get more. But it's kind of catch-22.
That's Tyson Bukaboom, who hopes, since Prime Minister Carney was at the stadium in London to see the World Cup final, more public funding will eventually find its way to sports like hers.
So what is Ottawa saying then about supporting elite athletes going forward?
That it wants to take a bottom-up as opposed to a top-down approach. Here's what Secretary of State for Sport Adam Van Couverden had to say about that.
There's been a lot of efforts over the last couple of decades to bolster the Canadian sports system and support athletes, but what works best is making sport more affordable, particularly these days, right? Everything's too expensive. Sports are more expensive, so are flights for national teams, and we've got to recognize that when we fund the bottom of the pyramid, that's just participation, as many people as possible, particularly kids, playing sports, then that's going to result in more success at the very top. We're going to get more Christine Sinclairs and Sidney Crosbys at the top of the pyramid if we have more kids in activity.
And you can see, Marcy, why Van Couverden, a former Olympic kayak champion, is prioritizing Canadian youth. A recent Stats Canada report found that half of Canadian parents now say the cost of enrolling kids in organized sport is too much. And that same report revealed 4 out of 5 Canadian teenagers, 80% of them, aren't even meeting basic physical activity recommendations. So it's pretty tough to own an Olympic podium when there are such serious barriers to even getting started in sport.
Now, with all of this said, how optimistic are you then, Scott, about the country's prospects for future Olympic success?
Well, long term, a Canadian Olympic Committee announcement earlier this week certainly helps. The committee laid out a 10-year plan they dubbed Team Canada 2035. So here are the pillars of that plan. 1, to become a top 5 nation in combined medal count at the Summer and Winter Olympics. 2, to inspire and engage 1 million more young people to participate in organized sport. And 3, to champion climate action to preserve sporting environments. Lofty goals, to be sure. But the COC, Marcy, says its marketing sponsors have already committed $500 million to make this all happen. Now, in the meantime, projections for Canada at the Milano Cortina Games are pretty encouraging as well. CBC forecasts a top 4 finish overall in medals, with 10 of them being gold, so a 6 gold improvement from the last games. A stellar short-track speed skating team has a lot to do with that. Led by world champion William Danjanu, many believe this team could have 7 podium finishes in Italy. Danjanu, the Sherbrooke, Quebec native, was asked whether he thinks what would be a record medal haul for a Canadian short-track team is really possible.
I feel like it can happen. I hope it'll happen. It probably happened, honestly.
So when you hear confidence like that, it's hard not to feel confident in turn, Marcy, that Canada will be an Olympic force, not just in Italy, but beyond.
All right, Scott, a week from today. Thank you very much for your report.
You betcha.
From CBC Sports, that is Scott Regehr.
Through the winter's ice and cold, down Nicollet Avenue, a city of flame fought fire and ice neath an occupier's boots.
Well, you might recognize the voice of Bruce Springsteen. You might also recognize Nicollet Avenue. Maybe you visited Minneapolis as a Manitoban, walked Nicollet. I know I have. This song new this week from the American rock legend. He wrote it. It's called The Streets of Minneapolis, and he wrote it in response to the polarizing situation of what's happening on the streets there, the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good by ICE. He says it was written on Saturday, recorded Tuesday, came out Wednesday, so very much a response. Resistance often comes in the form of singing. We'll hear a little more of Bruce in a moment, but let's talk about an event that's coming up that is asking for your voice. The Canadian Mennonite University, CMU, is inviting Winnipeggers to come sing songs of protest and courage in support of Minneapolis. The event's not a performance, it's more of a community gathering that invites everyone to sing. If you're interested, but you're concerned about your singing skills, don't worry. Annalie Leptison is with us to talk this morning about what's happening there. She's a faculty musician and event planner, and she says she's going to make sure no one goes off key. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being here. So how did you come up with the idea for this event?
This event actually emerged from a need that we heard articulated in our broader community. People were saying, we don't know what we can do, but we want to stand in solidarity with Minneapolis. It can be so easy to feel like there is no meaningful difference that we can make, and I think a lot of us are feeling that way. But something we can do is sing together. And we know that communities have done this as they are doing in Minneapolis right now during times of crisis throughout history. And so this is our opportunity to sing together in solidarity with Minneapolis. So we're responding to some folks, some alumni who approached CMU and said, we need to do something and we think we need to sing. Can you help gather us for this? And we said, absolutely. We also need to do something, and we think it's singing.
What is it about singing, do you think, in times of I'm looking for the word because I don't want to say desperation, but you kind of, when you started, you said people say they don't know what to do. So what is it about singing that makes people feel like that is feeding part of that need to respond?
One of the things I think singing does is it gives us something physical and something embodied in our response. And so often that's what's missing. I've been sitting on my couch, scrolling, trying to get updates, trying to switch to a different news service. And it's all building as this, anxiety and tension in my head. And singing pulls us out of that, pulls us out into something embodied. But more than that, it's something that we can't do on our own with the same sound. It's something collective. We find that we breathe together. We start to sync, our hearts beat together. We notice the same pauses. And just that collective experience is something that I think is really unique in our culture today. And it's something that a lot of us are craving, having these shared collective experiences, especially in a protest space where we know that singing is something that is so effective in that space to draw people together, to remind us of our collective voice, to pull us out into something concrete we can do. And so we know that music is a powerful tool for bringing people together. It's a powerful tool for processing what is going on internally and externally when things are unsteady in the world around us. And so there is something very physical that happens when we sing in spaces like this.
We were actually having a discussion in the newsroom this morning about in years from now how that Bruce Springsteen song Streets of Minneapolis will be viewed in terms of documentation. And then we were thinking about other moments in history, and you said it, like there's so many songs. The Hurricane from Bob Dylan came to mind. Tell me what's on the set list for this.
So a huge range of songs. There's so much rich protest music to choose from, really. So we are going to sing songs like There's More Love Somewhere, a traditional African-American song. There's More Hope Somewhere, More Peace Somewhere. We'll learn new songs that I think will be new to everyone, like We Resist. It's a new anthem by Mark Miller. It's just a really simple and profoundly beautiful protest anthem that invites us to bond together in our love for each other, not in our hatred of someone else. There are songs from, ecumenical Christian communities around the world, like the Taizé community in France, or in our Anabaptist tradition that we have at CMU. There have been sort of peace-building anthems that have been important throughout Mennonite history for hundreds of years. So we might do one of those.
Sounds like
then we're
Go ahead.
I'll just say we're planning to close with We Shall Overcome as well.
So let me ask you who should attend. Let's go back to where I started, because someone might be thinking, well, are we singing in a big group? And, if I can't really sing on key, do I need to worry about that?
Absolutely not. We want everyone to feel welcome. The more the merrier. There will be no spotlighted solos. You don't need to know any of the songs. You don't need to bring anything with you. We're hoping that you'll be singing in a big crowd of people where your voice will be one contributing to the sort of mighty roar that we can create together. So certainly no pressure. All are welcome. All ages are welcome. No particular ability is necessary. We'll have all the tools we need. We've got percussion and piano and guitar for accompaniment. And we'll do lots of voices only singing as well. So certainly no required skill level. We just want to have you join your voice with ours.
Well, Abby's going to roll Springsteen right now, actually, again, underneath us as we finish our interview here from the top. And as we close, what do you hope this is going to mean to people in Minneapolis?
I hope they know that we're standing with them. There is this sort of border between us, but we feel their pain and we see what they're going through here in Winnipeg. And so many of us have traveled there, have connections there, and we're really feeling this and standing with them. So I hope that our act of solidarity or act of resistance is just felt as a warm support for them, and that they know that we're feeling their pain too, and we're standing with them.
All right, Annalie, thank you very much.
Thanks, Marcy.
Live on CBC, Annalie Leptison, event planner for the Singing Resistance, the event at Canadian Mennonite University. It starts at 7 o'clock on Monday. You can reach out for more information on their socials. Now let's hear the rest of Bruce Springsteen's new tune out this week. This is Streets of Minneapolis.
And there were bloody footprints where mercy should have stood. And 2 dead left to die on snow-filled streets, Alex Pretty and Renee Good. Oh, Minneapolis, I hear your voice singing through the bloody mist. We'll take our stand for this land and the stranger in our midst. Here in our home they killed and in the winter of 26, we'll remember of Minneapolis. Trump's federal thugs beat up on his face and his chest. Then we heard the gunshots and Alex Pretty lay in the snow dead. Their claim was self-defense, sir. Just don't believe your eyes. It's our blood and bones and these whistles and phones against Miller and Noam's dirty lies. Oh, I'm Minneapolis, I hear your voice crying through the bloody mist. We'll remember the names of those who died on the streets of Minneapolis.
Bruce Springsteen and Streets of Minneapolis. Still ahead on Information Radio on CBC. We have business news coming up. Stay with us. Right now, though, your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's cold. It's minus 25 right now in Winnipeg. We'll warm up to minus 19, still well below seasonal for this final Friday of January. Some Winnipeggers are worried about higher property taxes next year. The city is mailing out estimates for property values used to calculate homeowners' taxes. Lori Anderson lives in St. James, one of the areas seeing the largest surge in property values. Her home's estimated value is 15% higher at just over $400,000.
Very surprised, yes, because it's kind of maintained in the 300,000, mid 300,000s for a number of years, so to jump that much, I was really surprised.
Property value going up does not automatically mean higher taxes. Homeowners have time to dispute the estimates. The finalized numbers will be mailed out in June. Winnipeg business leaders wanting an end to interprovincial trade barriers wonder what happened. Ever since the United States imposed tariffs on Canada, some laws have been passed and memorandums of understanding signed. But most of the barriers remain. In fact, a new report suggests if all these regulations were lifted, Manitoba's real GDP would rise by 12.2% in the long run. Lauren Remillard at the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce says Canada needs to make more progress.
If they can do it as a continent in Europe, getting to a single currency and a common market, it boggles the mind that we in Canada cannot do it with 41 million people.
The report from the International Monetary Fund says much of the internal trade costs right now are because of the service sector. Some of the affected industries are healthcare, finance, and transportation. The Premier says he will talk with the College of Registered Nurses about out-of-province applicants. But Wab Kinew says his government relaxed rules to bolster nurse numbers in Manitoba. The college points to a case where a nurse in Lynn Lake was stripped of her license for administering a nearly fatal dose of fentanyl. The nurse had been trained in India and hadn't practiced as an RN for 13 years. The college wants the government to tighten the rules. Kinew says he will listen to those concerns.
I'm sure there'll be a learning opportunity for our government through this report and through meeting with the College of Nurses. And I would just ask the College of Nurses in Manitoba to also keep an open mind about learning lessons, because certainly they have been called out by many folks outside of our government about the need to modernize.
The college says the shocking misconduct might have been avoided had the registrant been scrutinized. U.S. President Donald Trump's leveling a new tariff threat against Canada, posting on social media he is considering a 50% levy and withdrawing certification on any Canadian aircraft sold in the United States. Trump calls it retaliation for Canada's alleged refusal to certify jets from American company Gulfstream Aerospace. However, Transport Canada has, in fact, certified several Gulfstream models. Canadian plane maker Bombardier has reached out to Ottawa in reaction to Trump's announcement. No comment yet from the federal government. Experts question whether Trump can really lift that certification. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. It's time the city of Steinbach adopted a public transit system. That is according to a group called the Southeast Equity Coalition. The chair of the group, Gay Boys, says it's time to put the idea into high gear. She supports a broad community plan currently in front of City Council in Steinbach, calling for buses on the streets.
Public transit is the way that we get to places, and it's the way of making this a safe and really wonderful community to live in.
The group represents seniors, people with intellectual and physical disabilities, low-income residents, and mothers fleeing domestic violence. Public transit is one part of a broader plan in front of Steinbach City Council right now, authored by the Canadian Centre for Safer Communities. A crowd gathered at the Manitoba Legislature last night on the National Day of Remembrance and Action Against Islamophobia. People laid flowers beneath photos of 6 people killed during evening prayers at a mosque shooting in Quebec City in 2017. Krishna Labahari with the Islamic Social Services Association says the day is about remembering and speaking out.
Rise above that hate and build awareness in our communities that violence perpetrated against any faith and any faith group is wrong. It's a great immorality, and we as Canadians will not tolerate it.
Organizers say that message is especially urgent considering recent hate-related graffiti incidents in Winnipeg. Well, scorched by lightning.
Score! That shot tipped in front. It looks like Connor has the Jets on the board, and it's 2-1.
Kyle Connor in the second period there on TSN as the Jets fall 4-1 to the hot Tampa Bay Lightning. That was Connor's 24th goal of the season. Head coach Scott Arniel says his team had some good looks, but they were playing the Lightning.
Tampa's not going to let you play on the outside and give you some kind of one-timer from distance. I mean, especially with, you look at our goal. I mean, we got traffic in front of Vasilevsky, a high tip. You didn't see it, and that has to be a constant.
The Jets stay in Florida playing the Panthers tomorrow afternoon. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, Abby Adiemi, take it away. It's time for the regions.
It starts frigid, but it looks beautiful. We have lots of sunshine in the southern part of the province, and we're tracking light snow coming into some regions later. But tracking it first, it's going to hit the northern part of the province. In Winnipeg right now, we're looking at temperatures close to minus 27. We're tracking minus 25 in some areas, minus 27 at the airport. It's clear in the city. We'll see morning temperatures hover around minus 29 before we reach our sunny high of minus 19 later. However, light winds will make it feel even much colder with a wind chill close to minus 39 in the city this morning before it gets about minus 28 in the afternoon. So a risk of frostbite still possible for people making that transition from one bus to another. Prepare for that. In the Pembina Valley region, similar conditions. We're seeing temperatures around minus 27, tracking it all the way towards Headingley this morning. Sunshine on the way, high of minus 17. Also the wind chill close to minus 39. In Brandon, tracking it all the way towards Nippo. We're looking at clear skies also there, minus 27 in that part of the province. Your high around minus 20, biting wind chill close to minus 39. In the Parkland region, tracking it around Dauphin, we're looking at minus 31 at this time. Clear conditions, you warm to minus 15 later, but the wind chill in that part of the province already around minus 41. So take it easy. Frostbite in minutes. You are in that range. And then for Gimli is actually freezing this morning with that wind chill just sitting at minus 39 and your actual temperature at minus 35. You need to take it easy. So for folks in the Interlake region, be prepared for a cold start before you see some sunny conditions that would warm you to minus 19 later. Thompson is at minus 28. To the lake, we're looking at minus 25. And Churchill, we're seeing ice crystals in that part of the province at minus 27. All those regions will be warming up to about minus 16 and minus 15 later, except for Tuduli Lake, where we'll see your highs around minus 12, though the wind chill up north still close to minus 39. The powerful influence, we're looking at minus 19 at this time, and it's cloudy there. Just a few flurries spotted in that part of the province.
Crazy, eh?
Yeah, Marcy, it's just...
I'm looking for a break.
Well, wait for the weekend, Marcy.
Like, kinda, but then because I kept saying that, but then look at the wind.
I know it's the wind we also need to take into consideration.
And then that makes it feel almost lousier sometimes when it's -8 and winds are gusting to 50, so.
But on the flip side, finally, we're closing the chapter for January.
We are, yes. That can psychologically mean a lot, right? All right, Abby, thank you.
Thank you.
The commute. Corey, what do we got?
Yeah, it's been a quiet commute so far. I haven't heard of any major issues, but I was just looking, though, so depending if you are planning to get out this weekend with the, I guess, somewhat warmer weather, I was looking, the river trail at the Forks now open all the way on the Assiniboia. It runs from the Forks to the Ledge. And then on the Red River, it runs from the Forks all the way up to Churchill Drive now. So you got a really nice long trail to walk or toboggan or skate. So if you are looking to get out, that's how big the river trail is right now. And if the wind's on your back, maybe you can cruise. But if it's against you, we'll see how that goes. But if you do see something else going on, if you want to update me on how the river trail is actually looking, or the roads or the highways, bike lanes, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing out there. Ski trails too, why not? It's the weekend coming up. Let me know what you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
Otherwise, you get a natural facial with the wind whip.
Yes. And your face is all dry and cracked afterwards. It's going to be great. I have to put a little wax on my 1-year-old's cheeks, actually, or else they get like really
smart.
Red. Yeah, and dry. Yeah.
Let's talk to Chrisley Ramlakan here with our business news. Hi there.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
U.S. President Donald Trump making more tariff threats against Canada. What's the latest on that front?
Yes, so Trump is threatening to tariff Canadian-made aircraft. In a post on social media, Trump alleges that Canada has refused to certify some jets from American company Gulfstream. So he wants to decertify Bombardier and all aircraft made in Canada until Gulfstream is fully certified. And he says if the situation is not immediately corrected, he will put a 50% tariff on Canadian aircraft sold in the U.S. Now, Bombardier and Gulfstream are rivals. Montreal-based Bombardier routinely beats Gulfstream in the number of planes produced each year, but it has failed to rake in more money than its competitor since 2012. Now, in response on its website, Bombardier says it is an international company that employs more than 3,000 people in the U.S. and creates thousands of American jobs through suppliers. And the company says thousands of jets built in Canada fly in the U.S. every day, and it hopes this is quickly resolved to avoid a significant impact to air traffic and the flying public. Now, it's unclear whether Trump's threats are actionable. Experts are casting doubt on whether the president could unilaterally revoke an aircraft certification. And certification typically plays out over years in a process handled by regulators. But it does appear that Canada has not certified some of Gulfstream's business jets to the extent that the U.S. and Europe have.
Let's go to another story. The wealth gap is growing ever wider now in Canada. What are the details on this?
Yes, so the gap between the country's highest earning and wealthiest households and those who have the least grew in the third quarter of last year as strong financial market gains benefited the rich. Statistics Canada says the difference in the share of disposable income between the top 40% of households and the bottom 40% rose. So the bottom 20% saw their average disposable income edge down, while the top 20% saw an increase. And the top 20% also holds about 2/3 of Canada's total net wealth, averaging $3.5 million per household, while those in the bottom 40% have only about 3% of the country's net worth at an average of about $82,000 per household.
And finally, a once popular drink is now going to be off the store shelves.
Yes, that's right. So Minute Maid is discontinuing its line of frozen juices as consumer demand declines and tastes change. And it may have been the only company still selling the concentrated products into the Canadian market. Parent company Coca-Cola says the brand's frozen canned orange juice, lemonade, Fruitopia fruit punch, and Five Alive will be discontinued by April. And the company says it is leaving the frozen can category in both Canada and the U.S. in response to shifting consumer preferences. Emma Balmont is with the market research firm Ipsos.
So if this category is forced to reassess itself and streamline itself for profitability in a market where profitability is a challenge, frozen concentrate is really just the one that is going to get the chop.
So people are turning to more shelf-stable and refrigerated options, and industry watchers say juice is actually just becoming less popular overall. And I definitely remember having these frozen juice cans in my house growing up. I feel like we always had them in the freezer, and put them in the container and smush them down, add the water.
And get the knife, try to get that top off the end, and then the icy part looks all cool. Make a punch with them. I guess they're gone.
Yeah.
All right, Crystal Lee, well, have a good weekend. Thank you very much for your reports this week.
Thanks, Marcy. You too.
Crystal Lee Roundlicans with us every morning on Information Radio with Business News. It's 6:44 a.m. It is Friday. It is January 30th. It is clear and minus 29 in Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with Darren Marash, Corey Funk, and Abby Adiemi behind the glass. Heather Wells in our news center this morning. Heather coming up is going to talk more about the property assessments that came out across Winnipeg this week. A lot of people with questions about how those were calculated. So stay tuned. That's coming up in our news headlines. Right now, Canada's premier has tackled the country's agenda at the First Ministers' meeting in Ottawa yesterday. The talks with Prime Minister Mark Carney focusing on tariffs and on international trade. Now, the issue of national unity, though, was raised as well. This is because U.S. State Department confirmed that Trump officials met with an Alberta separatist group. Another conversation at the table, continued threats from the Trump administration as a review of Canada's free trade deal with the U.S. draws near, is also part of the discussions. This is a slew of issues to parse through, but Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew says that in his view, the challenges are all interrelated. He spoke with the CBC's David Cochrane.
You don't want to necessarily inflame people who are in Alberta in this case, or in another topic of referenda that we had today related to Quebec and the Parti Québécois. You don't want to inflame things there, but at the same time, I'm coming from a province, Manitoba. If you ask people, do you want to stay in Canada? It would be yeah and heck yeah would be the two questions on the ballot, right? And so, the Trump administration, I don't think we should be surprised at anything that happens with them. We are headed into a CUSMA review, which when this CUSMA deal was negotiated was thought to, basically be a check mark. And now the stakes are very high. So I view this as part of a larger context where if you go back to the start of the year, Venezuela, Greenland, shots being sent towards our prime minister. There's a lot being thrown at us to try and destabilize us and to make us worried, like, oh, wow, maybe they don't need trade with Canada. They do. America needs trade with Canada. You look at our province in a state like Iowa. Iowa relies on the millions of weanlings, like pigs, that we send south of the border. There's huge interconnection right across that U.S.-Canada border. And there's going to be people in the business lobby in our country and otherwise who say, just keep your head down, negotiate a deal. And I would say no. We have to be able to look ourselves in the mirror as Canadians, as Canada at the end of this. And I think it's completely appropriate for our Prime Minister to give the speech that he gave at Davos. And I think everyone, including Donald Trump, should expect that we're still going to show up at the negotiating table and drive a hard bargain when it comes to the CUSMA review. This is who we are as Canadians. We're the adults in the room. We are people who can go into the corners at a hockey rink and then go out for beers at the end of the hockey game. And so, again, we know that Mr. Trump has game on. And let's see where the CUSMA review leads to, because at the end of the day, we're still going to be neighbors. We're still going to be trading partners. And hopefully we can get past an era of the constant back and forth and back towards an era of making money together.
That's Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew in conversation with David Cochrane on CBC yesterday. The First Ministers' meeting is what he's been attending with all of the premiers from across the country, a meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney. And a lot of issues have come up. Both Quebec and Alberta have been discussing potential independence referendums.
The year of the horse gallops in, and CBC invites you to celebrate. Experience the 2026 Manitoba Chinese Business Gala, February 6th at Club Regent Event Center. An evening of networking, food, performances, and awards. Celebrate the Chinese Lunar New Year and recognize the remarkable contributions of Manitoba's Chinese business community. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
It's 11 minutes to 7 o'clock, and I want to remind you of something coming up in the next hour. It is your last chance to enter our contest for Murdoch Mysteries in the WSO. The show is called Murder in F Major with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. There's a Murdoch Mystery star that's going to be there. They're playing music from Murdoch. There's a Q&A, but there's quite a prize pack happening. So we've got CBC prizes, Murdoch prizes. You get to go in a limo and have food and see the show. I mean, it's a really great prize. We are playing you Manitoba Mysteries that you have to solve for a chance to enter, and our final clue is coming up in just about an hour from now, actually under an hour from now, so be listening at 7:40. Right now on the show, the push to buy Canadian, as we've just been hearing, is loud and clear. The federal government's renewing that call this week. Some shoppers, though, say it is not that easy. Our colleagues at CBC Consumer Affairs Show Marketplace have found out that some Canadian-looking products, might actually be American. Now, you might have heard part of this in the news this week, but we have a full report next from Rosa Marcatelli. She's looked into the practice of what's being called maple washing in grocery stores across the country. Good morning, Rosa.
Good morning.
So what's maple washing?
It's when a product's packaging makes it look Canadian, as you mentioned. You know, things like maple leaves, the word Canada, Canadian, proudly Canadian. You may have noticed them at the grocery store. But those products are actually made somewhere else, often in the U.S. You know, for a lot of us, buying Canadian means picking products that are made here with Canadian ingredients. But don't be fooled, experts say. You know, whether it's intentional or not, some of those imported products give that Canadian vibe, but they can be very confusing to shoppers.
So what did you do to test this?
We went shopping, go figure, right? So we filled a bag with some of these items that looked Canadian, and then we dug deeper to find the truth.
And what did you find?
A lot of surprises. You know, let's start with Dave Lawson. He's from St. Catharines, Ontario. So this is a shopper who pays close attention to what he's buying. The first thing we see when we pull up to Dave's house are his bumper stickers. That's what we notice that say, Canada is not for sale. So he's a patriotic guy. You know, he wants to support the country in as many ways as he can, especially, he says, given U.S. President Trump's tariff threats.
The Americans are my friends, right? The people are in the U.S. are not the issue. It's what's happening at the administration level that's, you know, sending a clear signal, and so we need to respond to it.
As for Dave, he says the way he responds is by buying Canadian as much as possible. And that's why the label on Betty Crocker's chocolate chip cookie mix really bugs him. You know, right at the top in the front, it has a maple leaf and the words Canada's #1 in bigger font. And then in smaller font, it says selling baking mix brand. And when you flip it over, you see that it's a product of the U.S. Here's what Dave thinks about that.
This is advertising trying to make it look Canadian when in reality it's not.
So what else have people been flagging?
Another one is a type of Campbell's soup. It's called Habitant French-Canadian pea soup. A man named Bob Bastien brought it to our attention. So Bob is peeved that this soup has the words designed in Canada on the front, giving him the impression it's Canadian. But on the back, at the bottom, it says product of USA. Here's Bob.
Well, I've always considered Habitant pea soup French-Canadian, and I noticed that it's not really Canadian. It seems as though Campbell is trying to sell us a lie.
And there's another big brand, McCain. Most people think of them and they think, okay, this is a very Canadian company. Yeah, and they are. But one of their products is throwing some people off. Super Spirals fries. On the front, maple leaf, proudly Canadian company. But when you flip the package over in this hard-to-read font at the back, it says product of USA.
And I can also just see that yellow can of Habitant soup, by the way.
Right.
Where does all of this leave shoppers, Rosa?
Mostly confused. Some tell us they feel misled. So we took our grocery haul to the University of Guelph and food economics professor Mike Von Masso, who researches labels.
Well, we've heard people talk about maple washing, where they want to take advantage of that Canadian halo, so they'll do things that imply more Canadianness than is actually accurate.
Is that what we're seeing here?
I think we are seeing some maple washing, whether intentional or not. We are definitely seeing some.
Yeah, he says be aware of labels and what they mean, and there are a lot of different ones. Here are two quick examples that might surprise you. Made in Canada. That often means it's just the final step, the final transformation that happened here. Prepared in Canada can also include mostly imported ingredients. So Mike thinks it might be time for better labeling standards.
I wonder if there's some value in the CFIA clarifying what some of these things are, because it's become much more of a big deal than it's ever been before.
So what do the companies behind the products that we're highlighting today have to say about all of this?
Sure. So General Mills, that's the company that makes the cookie mix, says that the Canada's #1 selling baking mix brand is based on sales, it says, and reflects the pride they have in being part of kitchens across Canada. Campbell's, behind the Habitant French Canadian soup, says the Designed in Canada label means the soup was created by their Canadian team, and they are now phasing that wording out. McCain's tells us the machinery to make their Super Spirals fries only exists in the U.S., saying they are proudly Canadian, with 92% of the potato products they sell are grown and made here, adding that their labels follow regulations.
For those people heading to the grocery store this weekend, then, how do you know exactly what is Canadian?
You know, it depends where your bar is, but if you want to buy products that are made here with Canadian ingredients, if that's the goal, look for these words, product of Canada. So that means that most or all of the ingredients, the processing, and the labor are Canadian. It's basically the gold standard.
Now, it can still be a bit confusing, though. Made in Canada is different than product of Canada, and so on. All these terms, they're only slightly different. Is there a simpler way of verifying things?
Yeah, absolutely. It can get very confusing. So we did find one possible solution. Australia has a system where many food labels show a clear logo and percentage of local ingredients. So, for example, made in Australia with less than 10% Australian ingredients, or made in Australia with at least 60% Australian ingredients, whatever it might be. So it's right there at a glance at the grocery store. You know what you're getting. Mick Keogh is from the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. He's one of the people in charge of making sure labels are accurate in that country.
It's now a food labelling information standard, which means any food that fits the criteria has to be sold with that label on it, but at the same time means consumers get that information on virtually all the food products that they purchase in Australia.
So could Canada do something similar then?
You know, a lot of shoppers we spoke with think we should, but when we asked the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which is in charge of labeling, and Canada's Health Minister, Marjorie Michel, who's in charge of the CFIA, both refused an interview. So Marketplace went to Ottawa to get answers, and we did catch up with the minister as she headed into question period the other day. We had a very brief exchange. She assured us the government is looking at what they can do to make things easier for Canadians, including looking at labeling standards, but she did not elaborate. You can watch our encounter with the minister tonight on Marketplace and check out some of the other products we found and things you should watch for next time you go to the grocery store.
All right, Rosa, thank you very much.
Thanks for the time.
So you're ready to shop for the weekend, folks. Rosa Marcatelli for Marketplace. The Maple Makeover is on tonight if you want to check out the full investigation, as she mentioned. 8 o'clock, CBC Television, YouTube, and CBC Gem. I'm RC Marcusa. We're live in downtown Winnipeg this morning, where it's clear and minus 29, Brandon minus 28, Thompson minus 26. Very brisk this morning. And with wind chills, it'll feel more like minus 39 in Winnipeg. So you don't want to be standing out there for long. You certainly want to be covered up. We are expecting a sunny, clear day with a high of minus 19. Traffic's been really pretty good. Give us a call, though, if you do see any problems or if it's extra slick and we should pass that along, either on the highways or in whatever city you're in. Winnipeg, Brandon, if you're up in Thompson, or if you're over in Steinbach. 788-3093. That's where you can call us. After 7 o'clock on the show, CBC Manitoba's future 40 finalists have been announced this week, and they're profiled online. We're going to meet one recipient who helped create an online portal for people who are living with chronic pain. It's now being used by 300,000 Canadians, so stay tuned for that. Also, as I mentioned, your last chance to win that fabulous CBC Winnipeg prize pack to see the WSO perform with Murdoch Mysteries is coming up. The Clue at 7:40. And after an Olympic-inspired jacket from the hit show Heated Rivalry went viral online, a Winnipeg sewing studio hopped on the bandwagon, offering crafty fans a way to create their own jackets like it. We're going to bring you that story and head to the sewing class in the next hour of Information Radio. Right now, let's head over to our news center at 2 minutes to 7 and find out what's making headlines with Heather Wells.
Well, some Winnipeggers are shocked by the city's assessment of the value of their homes. The city has been mailing out proposed assessed property values for the 2027 tax year. Brian Clark lives in North Kildone, and he says his house's estimated value is 31% higher. He doesn't understand how the city arrived at that number. Property values going up does not automatically mean higher taxes. Homeowners do have time to dispute the estimates. The city of Steinbach is considering a plan to restart a public transit system. That idea has been sitting idle ever since it was first recommended back in 2006. The Southeast Equity Coalition says the city's growing population demands public transportation. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, let's get some calls on the assessments. What do you think of yours, and what are your questions about them? Jeff Berwati's going to be here, Councillor for NK, in the next hour. 788-3205, 788-3205. You are already weighing in online on my Facebook page, and you can write there if you want. Marcy Marcusa page acts as a show page when we're on the air. But we'd love to hear from you. So 788-3205. We'll get into your thoughts on the assessments in the next hour. Right now it is 1 minute to 7 o'clock, and the latest in national and international news is up next right here on CBC. It's time for World Report.
And people say, well, you're going to get distracted with this, and the answer is no, because the same thing I have to do in January is what I have to do on Election Day, which is to do a good job.
I'm Dave Seglins. The Conservative Party meets in Calgary, and Pierre Poilievre will kick things off with a speech aimed at winning over party faithful and those who the party's trying to win over. Conservative leadership coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Conservative delegates at the party's convention in Calgary are holding a critical leadership review today. It's Pierre Poilievre's first major test since losing last spring's federal election to Mark Carney and the Liberals. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. So Janice, how significant is it that this convention is taking place in Calgary?
Well, it's Pierre Poilievre's hometown, right? And going back to the founding of the modern Conservative Party under Stephen Harper, the city is still very much the one most closely associated with the Conservative movement in Canada. So if you were setting out to craft a comeback narrative for Pierre Poilievre, this is the friendliest room possible for his keynote speech tonight. From the buttons on the floor of the convention to the social media feeds of MPs past and present and Conservative influencers, messages seem to have been managed to suggest the same kind of overwhelming support across the Conservative base that first won Poilievre the leadership by a large margin back in 2022. The trouble is, public opinion polling is not offering him the same margins among the general population. The politics swirling outside this convention also turbulent, to say the least. The headlines as people flew into Calgary, all anxious about Alberta separatists looking for financial and political support from the Trump administration. Former Conservative leader Peter MacKay thinks Poilievre should tackle that head on.
He has to position himself as a leader in this country, positioning himself to champion the anti-separatist movement in Alberta, where he is from. That may also be a place where he can gain credibility in the rest of the country.
CBC News has been told, indeed, the leader will be speaking to that issue in his speech tonight.
All right, Janice, apart from the leadership vote, how is the Calgary location shaping the issues delegates are debating?
Well, if you look at the policy resolutions, they always include causes dear to social conservatives, issues that underlie Western alienation. In the past, Conservative conventions have been carefully managed to look like a big welcoming tent, but the rise of Donald Trump has emboldened movement conservatives worldwide. So we'll see if that bedrock of the conservative movement in Canada is more vocal and powerful at this event.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
U.S. President Donald Trump is once again escalating tensions with Canada. This time, he's threatening tariffs and decertification of Canadian-made aircraft, singling out Bombardier. CBC's Willie Lowry joins us from Washington. Willie, what exactly is the president threatening to do?
John, Donald Trump lashed out at Canada late last night, taking to social media and threatening to slap 50% tariffs on Canadian aircrafts if Canada does not fully certify a range of Gulfstream jets. He said, based on the fact that Canada has wrongfully, illegally, and steadfastly refused to certify the Gulfstream 500, 600, 700, and 800 jets, one of the greatest, most technologically advanced airplanes ever made, we are hereby decertifying their Bombardier Global Expresses and all aircraft made in Canada until such time as Gulfstream, a great American company, is fully certified, as it should have been many years ago. Now, it's unclear if Trump even has the authority to do that, but the move comes amid heightened tensions in recent weeks between Canada and the U.S. Just last night, Trump once again warned of the dangers of a Canada-China trade deal.
Canada's not doing well. They're doing very poorly, and you can't look at China as the answer.
So, Willie, let's talk about the response so far from Bombardier and beyond.
Yeah, so Bombardier issued a statement saying it was in contact with the Canadian government, but also highlighting the fact that the Montreal-based company employs more than 3,000 people across 9 states, and that its planes are fully compliant with Federal Aviation Administration regulations. The IAM union, which represents machinists and aerospace workers, says politicizing aircraft certification would set a dangerous global precedent, undermining international safety standards and putting the integrity of the aviation system at risk. And this is not the first time Trump has targeted Bombardier. During his first term, he placed 300% tariffs on the company's C-Series.
CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump says he will nominate former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh as the next chair of the Federal Reserve. Warsh would replace Jerome Powell when Powell's term ends in May. Trump has repeatedly criticized Powell for not cutting interest rates fast enough. The nomination, which requires Senate approval, could signal a shift toward a Federal Reserve more closely aligned with the White House, raising questions about the central bank's long-standing independence. Ukraine's president says he's willing to ease attacks on Russian infrastructure if the Kremlin does the same in Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky's comments follow a request by Donald Trump urging Vladimir Putin to pause strikes as Ukraine endures a bitter cold snap. Millions are without heat after repeated Russian attacks. Crystal Gamansing reports from London.
Nelia Denisenko says she keeps reminding herself it's not as bad as it could be. She's handing out bowls of hot soup to her cold neighbors who have sought refuge at one of the city's warming sites. Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv, wrote on social media more than 370 multi-story buildings are still without heat. Russia has repeatedly hit Ukrainian infrastructure sites, leaving thousands to freeze in the dark for weeks. In his nightly address Thursday, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed gratitude to U.S. President Donald Trump for efforts to halt Russian strikes on energy infrastructure.
We asked President Putin if they could stop the shooting for a week. They're being hit with proportionately the kind of cold that we're being hit. It's much colder in Ukraine to start off with.
Today, the Kremlin confirmed Trump's request, but declined to comment further. Repeated Russian strikes have made it virtually impossible for crews to make needed repairs. The European Union shipped nearly 500 generators to Ukraine to help people battle the frigid cold and is looking at other energy support options. Kaja Kallas is the EU's foreign policy chief.
They are bombing Ukrainians, trying to bomb and freeze them to surrender.
Follow-up peace talks mediated by the U.S. were to take place Sunday in Abu Dhabi. However, Zelensky said the location could change. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Israel says it will reopen Gaza's border crossing with Egypt on Sunday, allowing limited movement of people in and out of the territory for the first time in nearly 2 years. Israeli officials say travelers will be vetted by both Israel and Egypt, with European Union border guards overseeing the crossing. The Rafah crossing, Gaza's main gateway to the outside world, has been largely closed since May of 2024. The move follows the recovery of the remains of the last hostage in Gaza and is expected to advance ceasefire efforts. RCMP in Halifax are changing how they track their firearms. The move comes after the force lost track of 3 weapons for 7 months. Kayla Hounsell has more.
There was no evidence to suggest they were out in the public realm.
Constable Mandy Edwards of the Halifax RCMP acknowledges while police believed 3 unaccounted-for carbines were still in their custody somewhere, they had no idea where the guns were for 7 months. They discovered the issue during a routine audit in June 2025. Carbines are semi-automatic rifles which officers are required to sign in and out when needed.
We had never believed that they were stolen.
When CBC News asked about the long guns, Edwards confirmed the force had done a thorough search over 7 months and still could not locate them. 3.5 hours later, she said the guns had been found, and the matter had just been clerical. She said the carbines had been listed on the inventories for 2 detachments in Nova Scotia. They showed up in one detachment's audit, but because they were registered twice, showed up as missing in the other audit. Michael Arntfield is a criminology professor at Western University.
The ability of police departments to maintain accurate records and chain of custody of items in their possession is central to their authority and the public trust.
The Halifax detachment is now conducting inventory audits once a month instead of 4 times a year. It's also implemented a new system allowing officers to scan QR codes on long guns with their phones and supervisors to conduct random compliance checks from any location. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, news anytime. Our website, cbcnews.ca, including an article now about goodbye frozen orange juice. cbc.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm RC Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Did you get your home assessment in the mail this week, Winnipeg? What's your home worth across the city? People are taking notice of some big increases depending on the neighborhood you're in. We're going to talk to a city councillor about North Kildonan, which is seeing some of the highest median increases in the city. You've already been writing into us. April Kalanick says $80,000 is a projected increase in value for our 50-year-old home in NK. I'm pretty sure we'll never sell it for what the city says it's valued at. Not sure where that estimate number comes from. Benjamin Maia says these increases aren't harmless adjustments. They're direct hits to working households already carrying the system. People deserve answers, not another quiet tax grab dressed up as policy. So some concerns here. Frank Stuckey saying, how the heck did the value of my home go from $325,000 to $415,000 in 1 year? Sounds suspicious, especially with a 2-year cumulative property tax increase of 9.45%. So it's all about money in your homes in Winnipeg this hour as we look closer at those assessment questions. Plus, a final chance for you to win our contest to go and see Murdoch Mysteries and the WSO. Fabulous event coming up in a week from now. We will have our final clue. If you can solve the mystery, you'll be entered to win. So stay tuned. That's at 7:40. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells with other developing stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg business leaders wanting an end to interprovincial trade barriers are wondering what happened. Since the United States imposed tariffs on Canada, some laws have been passed, memorandums of understanding have been signed, but most of the barriers remain. A new report suggests if all these regulations were lifted, Manitoba's real GDP would rise by 12.2% over the long run. We'll hear more reaction to that. As well, a show of interfaith solidarity at the Manitoba legislature last night as people gathered to confront Islamophobia and other forms of hate. People from multiple faiths spoke on the National Day of Remembrance and Action Against Islamophobia. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
A cold last Friday of January, Abby.
Yes, my
Marcy, we're tracking frigid Arctic air mass, keeping temperatures well below seasonal across the regions this morning. And we're tracking that light snow still moving through the northern part of the province. For Winnipeg right now, we're tracking the temperatures around minus 25 to minus 29 at the airport, and it's going to hover near that minus 29 mark before we reach the sunny high of minus 19 today, with the light winds really making it feel much colder. Morning wind chill would be around minus 39 in the city. And for northern Manitoba, you're waking up to temperatures around minus 27, increasing clouds and light snow moving through Thompson and Churchill. Highs will hit roughly minus 15 for that part of the province, but the breezy conditions means the wind chill won't really let things warm up much. You're going to see a wind chill around minus 37 all day. Well, down south, we're looking at more like a cold, sunny Friday. Temperatures starting as low as minus 30 around Brandon and towards Dauphin this morning. And most of the regions will see sunny conditions, but will be struggling with the morning wind chills of minus 38 to minus 40 in the southern parts of the province. We're going to see highs around minus 19 across board. But Winnipeg, we're freezing this morning, minus 29 at the airport. That's what we see. And we're in for a sunny day, but it's not really going to warm things up much.
All right, let's get into our commuter news with Corey Funk.
Northbound Gateway just approaching McLeod. There's a collision blocking that northbound curb lane on Gateway, so keep left to get around that. That's according to the Winnipeg Traffic Management Center. Haven't heard of any other major issues out there. It's been pretty quiet on the commuter line. I will let folks know that with this slightly warmer weather ahead for the weekend, if you're looking to get out, the river trail, I just looked, it now runs all the way from the legislature on the Assiniboine down through the Forks, up on the Red, all the way up to Churchill Drive now, according to the Forks' website. So if you want to skate or walk on that trail, that is all open to do that this weekend. If you have any other updates for me on the trails, on the bike lanes, on the roads, on the highways, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, our first guest this half hour understands the importance of a calm mind. Her research combines psychology and medicine to help ease Manitobans who are undergoing surgery or living with chronic illness. Renee Gabalawi is an associate professor with the University of Manitoba's Departments of Clinical Health Psychology and Anesthesiology, Perioperative and Pain Medicine. She is also one of CBC Manitoba's Future 40 finalists for 2026. You can find the full list online. It just came out this week at cbc.ca/Manitoba. But I spoke with Renee Gabalawi about her work last week.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on this.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such an honor.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the recognition means to you.
Oh, it means so much. I was blown away by the incredible talent of the other nominees. We have so many exceptionally talented young people in this province. And so to be part of that group is just such an honor and very humbling.
Tell us more about this research. I mean, you've said, and most people listening will know, that it can be normal to feel anxious, especially before surgery. Mm-hmm. When is it, though, cause for concern?
Yeah. So we know, there's definitely a spectrum when it comes to any sort of health event or procedure, surgery, where a little bit of anxiety is actually quite adaptive. It pushes people to actually comply with all the important medical recommendations. But sometimes it becomes too much, where then mental health symptoms become detrimental to someone's functioning and actually can be detrimental to the surgery itself.
In what way can they be detrimental to the surgery itself?
We know that significant mental health issues prior to surgery is associated with increased rates of complications, increased length of stay, reinstitutionalization, and we even recently published a study that found an association with mortality within 1 year.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something about the need for staying calm that will improve outcomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How important is this area of research right now, given the state of surgery wait times in Canada?
Well, I actually think this provides a really unique opportunity to better support mental health. Because people are waiting a longer time for surgery, I think it's instrumental that we capitalize on that and be able to offer people mental health support so they can focus on that in addition to any other prehabilitation initiatives, so nutrition, exercise, physical function, in order to optimize surgical outcomes.
The longer the wait, the more the anxiety. Do we know if that's true?
Sometimes. It really depends, right? It depends on a lot of patient factors, but certainly for many people it can increase anxiety.
You're using virtual reality to help with some of your research. How so?
So in a few different ways, all within the surgical context. So I recognize that mental health resources are really quite limited and access is very difficult. And so I started to think about what are some innovative solutions? How can we better support people's mental health? And technology was one of those answers. And so I've developed, or we have developed, a virtual reality program to help with anxiety prior to surgery by giving people information, giving them skills to enhance coping and ultimately enhance their success with surgery as a whole. We also have a number of other types of studies, including use of virtual reality during surgery for those awake surgical procedures and after surgery as well, with a particular focus on phantom limb pain following lower limb amputation.
What might that look like? I'm just trying to imagine that. Or if you want to give an example of even, it could be phantom limb, but it also could be when you said if you're awake during surgery, what might you virtually be experiencing that would help?
Yeah, so our awake surgery interventions are really focused on relaxation. So we have a number of different simulations where people are in a calmer environment. Operating rooms can be really scary for people. It's very foreign. I know to healthcare providers, it's, the norm. It's our work environment, but to the public, it's terrifying. And so it's a way to escape and distract them from what's going on, to allow them to be more relaxed and calm throughout the procedure.
So you're somewhere else virtually. And what about phantom limb pain?
For phantom limb pain, it's a really interesting phenomenon in terms of what the brain does in those situations. And I won't get into the neuroscience of it.
But you think your leg is still there and it's not, right?
Essentially, yes. And so what we've found is that by sort of imagining or simulating your limb as being there, people can actually cope with the pain, or it actually results in a reduction of pain. And physiotherapists have been doing this through something called mirror box therapy, where they essentially put a mirror next to the existing leg as a reflection so that it makes the brain believe that the limb is still there. And psychologists often use imagery to simulate. So my thought was, well, why can't we use virtual reality to do that? And so we developed a virtual reality program to simulate the person's limb or limbs so that they can engage in physiotherapy exercises and stretching in the hospital setting when they're experiencing phantom limb pain.
You were involved in creating something called the Power Over Pain portal. How does that work?
So the Power Over Pain portal is an incredible resource for Canadians. It's freely accessible to Canadians and has a large number of resources, YouTubes, programming embedded within it that's all evidence-based for individuals with chronic pain and a range of chronic pain conditions. And so we partnered with people across the country in being involved in different aspects of it. And the particular aspect that we have been involved in developing is called the IMPACT program, which is an evidence-based behavioral program for chronic pain management. And so we had developed this with the support from the HSC Foundation and studied it and found that it was very effective in pain management. And then we were able to partner with colleagues in Ottawa through governmental support to embed it within this portal and to make it freely accessible to Canadians, which is a huge win. So the portal itself has been accessed now, I believe, over 300,000 Canadians with chronic pain.
Thank you very much for coming in, Renee.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Renee Gabalawi, I spoke with her last week. She teaches at the University of Manitoba in the departments of clinical health psychology, anesthesiology, perioperative, and pain medicine. And she is one of CBC Manitoba's future 40 finalists and winners announced earlier this week. Celebrate our community. Find the full list at cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is 7:23 a.m. now on CBC's Information Radio. And I don't know about you, but we're the last Friday in January. And why does this month feel so long? Now, it's not logical that people think January and February drag. January has 31 days. It's one of 7 months that have 31 days. February is actually the shortest month. To some people, though, it just drags, like I said. The CBC's Melody Jacobson shook off her winter blues to find out which month to people does seem the longest.
If you had to choose between January or February, which one would you say feels like the longest?
I would say February. February feels the longest for sure.
January. The winter is more severe then. And usually I manage to get to go away in February.
I think February is longer, and so we head off to Mexico for the month of February. We never stay home.
Yeah, definitely January for me.
Okay.
Miserable month, yeah.
I think January for sure feels longer than February.
February is a short month. It's only 28 days. You know, the longest 29 days.
That's using logic, but how does it feel to you?
February seems longer because January you're sort of like getting used to winter, and then February all of a sudden it's so winter.
For myself, it's more the anticipation of spring is coming. Get February over and done with. The feeling of when you get closer to something, it starts feeling like it takes forever to get to that point.
Right. It's like you're in school or something.
Yeah.
You're waiting for that lunch break. Or
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. So you're kind of waiting for the bell to ring, and you look at the clock. You're like, oh my God, only a minute has passed.
It always seems like a grind after Christmas. It's back to work. It's dry January. It's dark. It's wet. It's cold.
Right.
And so I see February is a bit more hope, on the horizon. You're kind of coming into spring a bit more so.
So you both participate in dry January?
Yeah, that's what we're doing at the minute, yeah. Kind of breaks things up a little bit from your normal routine, alters your perception of time a little bit. Yeah, things definitely go a bit slower if you haven't had a drink.
I think I'd have to agree doing it dry, especially coming after Christmas and you're really drinking the booze and stuff.
Indulging in everything.
Yeah, it really makes the time, I think, go by a lot slower. Definitely back to work. You've not got any time off, really. Seems pretty miserable.
Everything seems to take longer in January, and it seems longer to get going and get started. I think it's also just a depressing month. It's also, the weather's atrocious, and I feel less motivated.
January has 31 days. There are other months that have 31 days. Is January longer than those other months?
Well, yes, I think it absolutely is. Definitely, yeah. Other months also, again, they also have anticipation towards the end. Like October 31st is Halloween, for example. December 31st is the New Year, right? So there are incentives in other times of the year.
Yeah. Whereas January 31st is just like meh.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's other months of the year where it's 31 days, but January seems longer.
Yeah, it definitely does. But we're coming up to the end of it, so... And then February is a short month. So it's pretty much March.
Almost, people, almost. All right, quick traffic tip for this last Friday in January.
Got a call from Julie. Ellison Colony. There's emergency vehicles. Seems to be responding to something going on there. And all the curb lanes in that whole intersection are blocked right now, she says. So slow going Ellis and Colony this morning. We're going to look into that with our news desk as well throughout the morning.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Claude Vegas here with sports, drawing to closer to the finish line at the Scotties, including a trio of Manitobans, Claude.
Yeah, good morning, Marcy. For sure, 6 teams hope they'll have the perfect draw weight and hit the button as the playoffs begin at the Scotty Tournament of Hearts just outside of Toronto this afternoon. In the Page 1-2 qualifiers, unbeaten Caitlin Laws and her 8-0 Manitoba rink will face Nova Scotia's Christina Black, while the other unbeaten Manitoba rink of Beth Peterson will play Team Canada, skipped by Manitoba native Carrie Anderson, who was asked about Taylor Stevens' double takeout for 3 that beat Team Ontario 9-7 yesterday to clinch a playoff spot, and reminiscent of a Jennifer Jones shot against Ontario at the 05 Scotties that clinched the tournament.
I didn't get to see it. I kind of glanced over at what it was. It was like a Jennifer Jones shot in off for 3. Clearly they made it because the crowd was going wild. Reed was paying attention to their sheet, and I called the timeout, and I'm like, Coach, where are you? But it's amazing to see. It's really good for our sport, and Nova Scotia is a great team. They took us down to the wire too, and there's so many young, talented curlers out there.
Now, tonight in the Page 3-4 qualifiers, Stevens will face the loser of the Black versus Law game. The other 3-4 Page qualifier tonight will see Alberta's Selena Sturmey play against the loser of the Peterson-Anderson game. The semifinal and final are set for Sunday.
Jets grounded again, this time in Tampa, huh?
Yeah, Mary, the Jets found out last night what the rest of the NHL was experiencing this season. The Tampa Bay Lightning may be older and more grizzled, but they're still pretty good. And last night in Tampa, the Bolts jumped on the Jets for a late first-period goal and won early in the second before Kyle Connor broke through for the Jets, but not nearly enough offense, mustering just 23 shots on goal in a 4-1 loss. That's their third in the past 4 games. A flabbergasted Jets head coach, Scott Arniel, tried to dissect this latest loss.
You look at our goal. I mean, we got traffic in front of Vasilevsky, a high tip. They didn't see it. And that has to be a constant. It just was too far between. That's a compete thing. It's you have to decide. You're going to go inside where the heavy hitting's happening. That's something you got to do. It's if you don't want to do it, then you're going to end up having numbers like this.
Now the Jets continue their Florida tour with a stop in Sunrise against the Panthers tomorrow night.
Canada, meantime, unveils its full Olympic team, including some wily vets and raw rookies.
Yeah, Marcy, so the opening ceremonies at the Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina are set for a week today. And yesterday, the Canadian Olympic Committee unveiled the full roster of athletes that will head to Italy to compete for Canada. Of the 207 total athletes heading there, more than half will be making their Olympic debut. 108 will be women. The oldest competitors are 44-year-old curler Mark Kennedy and 42-year-old figure skater Deanna Stellato-Dudek. The youngest are a pair of snowboarders, 18-year-old Felicity Jeremia and Eli Bouchard. Now, Manitoba will have 4 athletes representing the province. And then there's the rare feat from Kelsey Mitchell. The Sherwood Park, Alberta native will compete in her first Winter Olympics in bobsled after winning gold in track cycling in Tokyo in the 2020 games, which actually became 2021. Now, the opening ceremonies are set for 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time next Friday, of course, right here on CBC.
All right. Thanks a lot, Claude. Appreciate it.
Okay, Marcy, you have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. That's Claude Fagan for Scott Reguer with Morning Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here. It is time for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's minus 25 in downtown Winnipeg. Colder at the airport. It's minus 29 there. And this is the last Friday of January. We are well below normal, but we're sunny, and we do see a big warm-up coming this weekend. Some Winnipeggers are shocked by the city's assessment of the value of their homes. The city has been mailing out proposed assessed property values for the 2027 tax year. Brian Clark lives in North Kildonan, one of the areas seeing the highest increases in property taxes, or property prices, I should say. Clark says his house's estimated value is 31% higher.
Our water bills have gone up like crazy. Everything is just going up, and I feel that because if I get a 31% increase in 1 year, we're paying taxes off of a number that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand where they get the number from.
The estimate is based on market conditions as of last April. The city says while the property value figures in its tax calculations, an increase does not mean higher taxes for homeowners. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. Winnipeg business leaders wanting an end to interprovincial trade barriers wonder what's happened. Since the United States imposed tariffs on Canada, some laws have been passed and memorandums of understanding signed, but most of the barriers remain. In fact, a new report says if all these regulations were lifted, Manitoba's real GDP would rise by 12.2% over the long run. Lauren Remillard at the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce says Canada needs to make more progress.
If they can do it as a continent in Europe, getting to a single currency and a common market, it boggles the mind that we in Canada cannot do it with 41 million people.
The report from the International Monetary Fund says much of the internal trade costs right now are because of the service sector, and some of the affected industries are healthcare, finance, and transportation. The Premier says he is willing to meet with the College of Registered Nurses to discuss concerns about licensing internationally trained applicants. The college points to a case where a nurse in Lynn Lake was stripped of her license for administering a nearly fatal dose of fentanyl. That nurse had been trained in India and had not practiced as an RN for 13 years. The college wants the government to tighten the rules. Wab Canoe says there will be lessons to learn from this case, but he says his government relaxed the rules in order to boost the number of healthcare workers.
A report like this is certainly tough, but you can't discard the years of people advocating for this particular college to open up more opportunity for nurses to work in our province.
The college says the incident might have been avoided had the registrant been scrutinized. Conservative Party delegates vote today on the leadership of Pierre Poilievre. The leadership review was triggered by the Conservatives' loss in last spring's federal election, and the vote is being held at the party's annual convention underway now in Calgary. You can hear more on that story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. The city of Steinbach's considering a plan to restart a public transit system. The idea has been sitting idle ever since it was first recommended in 2006. The Southeast Equity Coalition, a group of 20 service providers, says it's ready to get transit started in Steinbach. The chair of that group, Gay Bowes, says the city's growing population demands public transportation.
The need is just being magnified because the city's has grown, so the physical distance from one area of the city to the other is much larger. The community is much more diverse.
The coalition surveyed more than 1,200 people over the summer. 99% say they believe Steinbach should have public transit. A show of interfaith solidarity at the Manitoba legislature last night as people gathered to confront Islamophobia and other forms of hate. People from multiple faiths spoke on the National Day of Remembrance and Action Against Islamophobia. They laid flowers in memory of the 6 people killed in the 2017 Quebec City mosque shooting. Harold Schuster, with Independent Jewish Voices of Winnipeg, says the message goes beyond any single community.
We all have a shared humanity. The basic understandings of all those faiths are similar, and we need to recognize that it's okay to look different.
Schuster says Islamophobia and anti-Semitism stem from the same kind of intolerance. She says standing together is essential. Well, up against a hot team.
Score! That shot tipped in front. It looks like Connor has the Jets.
Kyle Connor in the second period there on TSN as the Winnipeg Jets fall 4-1 to the hot Tampa Bay Lightning. This was Connor's 24th goal of the season, but it was the Lightning's 7th consecutive win at home. Winnipeg Jets head coach Scott Arniel.
You can't play on the outside against a team like that. You got to get on the inside. You can't turn pucks over. And for me, those are the areas that, kind of what you have to do on a consistent basis.
Winnipeg stays in Florida now for a Saturday matinee match against the Panthers. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we're in hockey weather right now. Abby is in with our regional details.
Yeah, Marcy, I'll tell you, sometimes I just say to myself on days like this, it's like we're just in that system where the lead is like, and just trap the cold air.
Totally
Just
feels like that.
That's what it feels
We're
like.
in it.
It's heavy, it's frigid. It will be sunny. You will see the sun, but it's not really going to warm things up due to the high pressure we're having and this Arctic cold that is really in the province this morning. Sunny conditions, sunny Friday, clear skies across the southern region, light snow sweeping through the north. Though despite this sunny conditions, we will be seeing wind chills in the range of -40s across the region, which means a high risk of frostbite. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're looking at temperatures near -29 at the airports and -25 at the Forks this morning. It's going to hover near those those range till the lunch break before we get to a high of -19 later. We see the light winds in the city make it feel close to -39. Across the southern regions, we're seeing -30 in Brandon, -29 in Dauphin, -35 in Gimli, -29 in the northern part of the province. We're looking at -25 in Flin Flon, -27 in Thompson, and -25 with ice crystals in Churchill this morning. So it's more like we're seeing temperatures close to -30 across board, and the wind chill is something you need to take into consideration.
Okay, you're like our smiliest colleague at CBC, but when you gave that forecast, your face just looked unimpressed the entire time.
Yeah, because we just go from here. It's like, when you say the actual temperature, you go, it says -25, and then you go, whoa, but that -40 is actually what you'll be dealing with most of the day. So you get some sunshine, but
there's a lot of buts in this one, even when it gets warmer, as we've been saying on the weekend, than the wind. But the wind, yeah. All right, let's get into what's going on in the morning commute. There's a couple things, Corey.
Yes. First things first, got a call from Julie. She said there's a bunch of emergency vehicles right at the intersection of Ellis and Colony this morning. Seems to be responding to something there. We actually have someone on the way from the newsroom to go check it out right now. She says for the purposes of traffic, all the curb lanes in that intersection are blocked right now. So heads up there. We're going to keep an eye on what is going on. We're going to try to figure out what's going on there from our news crew as soon as we can. Also, some more positive stuff with this weather coming our way. If you've maybe been avoiding the river trail because it's been so darn cold, reminder that it's actually open now all the way from the legislature on the Assiniboine up through the Forks, up the Red to Churchill Drive. So if you're looking to get out this weekend with this this warmer weather, you can do that. It's open for skating and for walking as well. If you do see anything else going on, though, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line if you want to give me an update. 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
Well, next it is time for our final Murdoch Mysteries WSO contest morning.
Manitoba, a mysterious place. There's cases to be solved. Your help would be music to my ears and yours, because this prize pack is so good, it's almost criminal. Solve the clue, and you could be enjoying 2 tickets to Murdoch Mysteries, Murder in F Major with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, dinner at Kevin's Bistro, and a limo ride to get there, as well as a meet and greet with the actor who plays Lewin Watts on Murdoch Mysteries.
All right, Manitoba, here was yesterday's clue.
What 49-foot-long monstrosity became the namesake of a provincial park?
Manipogo! There's your answer. Manipogo Provincial Park. Manipogo, that's the answer. Lake Manitoba's answer to the Loch Ness Monster. Manipogo, first spotted in 1909. Although there were Indigenous claims of giant serpents in the lake long before that. So the latest spotting was 2011. People claimed to have seen it during the flood. Manipogo. If you emailed that to win@cbc.ca yesterday, you earned an entry into our contest. And now, finally, we've been playing all week. It's Friday morning. Here is the final mysterious clue.
He was the first man to escape over the wall of Stony Mountain Penitentiary and found a Percy-fically good hiding place, a log cabin near Ericsdale that he built himself. Email win@cbc.ca with your answer.
I always give little hints in the clues there. So if you know who that is, email win@cbc.ca with your answer. We'll play that clue one more time after 8 o'clock. Now, remember what you're playing for. Murder in F Major with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. Great night out on February 7th. Dinner for two, Kevin's Bistro, limo ride there and back, meet a star from Murdoch, and a big prize pack as well. So our contest entries will close today at 1 o'clock, and then we'll take all of those entries. We'll make a random draw. Monday, we're going to announce on the show who has won. So you have to be listening on Monday to see if you won. And that will be done with Murdoch star Daniel Maslany, who's going to be here in Winnipeg, as mentioned. So final clue, you just heard it, but we'll play it one more time after 8.
The Olympics feature the best curling talent on the planet, while in Winnipeg, slightly less talented curlers gather to throw rocks on the frozen Assiniboine River. Rock the River is back February 6th to 8th in support of the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Enter a team and join CBC to experience a Canada mixed curling Olympic matchup live streamed on the frozen river. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Slightly less talented curlers. Love that. That's a really fun event. Please check it out and see if you want to take part. By the way, an update on the traffic issue Corey mentioned at Ellison Colony. We just did confirm with our news center that is a fire. So you want to avoid that area in the meantime. And if it does affect you traffic-wise or somewhere else in the city, 788-3093 is where you can call us. Well, our next story is not about curling. It is about hockey and pop culture. Pop culture and crafting culture actually combined. If you're a fan of the Canadian TV phenomenon Heated Rivalry, you've probably had your eye on something specific and very cozy. It's a piece of clothing. It's a fuzzy white fleece with red accents that's appeared in the show. Now, it's not in stores, but CBC's Chloe Friesen has a story about where it is in Winnipeg.
This white Sherpa jacket has fans of Heated Rivalry in a chokehold, and a Winnipeg sewing studio is cashing in on the craze.
My name is Beth Cernick.
My name is Jillian McDonnell.
We are at Lilac Studio. I mean, it's a Sherpa jacket. Everybody needs a jacket for spring.
The Team Canada-inspired fleece is worn in just a couple of scenes of the hit hockey romance show, which has taken the internet and pop culture by storm.
Shane Hollander, I wanted to introduce myself. Okay.
And since the piece was made by the show's costume designer, you can't buy it anywhere. So crafty fans have taken it upon themselves to recreate it. But not everyone can do it on their own.
I am chronically online, and so a lot of people were trying to where can we find the Sherpa jacket? Or trying to make their own, and that's kind of when I approached Beth and being like, hey, maybe we need to do a class.
Beth Cernick and Jillian McDonnell are the co-owners of Lilac's Studio, a sewing shop that offers classes for all skill levels.
It took a week to sign up 10 people. 10 people, yeah, 10 people, and we've already posted another class as well.
Okay, here it is.
Yes.
Can I put it on?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, I'm going to be Shane Hollander. Let's talk about some of the details here.
Yes, for sure. So looking at the picture, I could tell that it was a raglan sleeve jacket. So instead of a regular sleeve, it kind of goes across here and across the back. Do you want to zip it up?
I would love to. Okay, yeah, look at the red on the zipper.
Yeah, and then we have the red detail around the collar, which is classic to the Shane Hollander jacket. And then we also have the 3 zipper pockets.
So in the show, there's patches.
Yes.
Right? So there's the
maple leaves on the sides, yeah.
And then is there something on the back?
Yeah, there's the Canada across the back of the jacket.
Right.
And we have a local embroiderer making us the Canadian letters so that people, for an additional price, they can applicate Canada on the back.
That's so fun.
Stay true to the cosplay of the jacket.
For the class, it's going to take about 6 hours. And again, it really depends on people's skill level. If they haven't worked with a lot of zippers, that might be a little challenging for them.
Okay, so you've got a lot of Sherpa.
Yes, so we special ordered this in specifically for the jacket.
And you have 2 color options, and I love what you named them. Okay, what color is this?
This is Jane Ivory, and then we have Lily Black. So you can have Shane Hollander or Elena Roosevelt. Oh. I know, it's very, very cozy.
I can't wait to just see Winnipeg just decked out in these. Everybody's going to be walking around.
People are going to be at whiteout parties in their Shane Hollander jackets.
The studio has 3 classes planned so far, one of them already sold out, but they're ready to ride the Heated Rivalry wave and add more if the demand continues. Mostly, they hope it will encourage more young people to take up sewing as a hobby.
You see something online, and of course you just want to emulate them, right? So yeah, I think this is a great start.
excited to face off with their sewing machines and show off their new threads. Chloe Friesen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Yes, the Prime Minister all over wearing that jacket this morning and through yesterday as he met one of the heated rivalry stars for a photo op. Travis Golby shot and edited that piece if you were watching it on our YouTube stream. And we do have actually an exciting added note here. Between the time of the recording of that piece and today, the creators of Heated Rivalry did strike a deal with clothing brand Province of Canada. So they will be producing and selling an official version of this famous fleece, but the release date is still to be determined.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
13 minutes to 8 o'clock. After 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to two Manitoba Conservatives, one who's in Calgary voting on Pierre Poilievre's future, about what they think of the leader and whether or not he should stay in charge of the Federal Conservative Party. He faces that vote tonight in Calgary at the convention, so stay tuned. We'll get that Manitoba perspective after 8. Right now, as you've been hearing in the news, a lot of people thinking about what their house is actually worth. This week, the city told Winnipeggers what they think. 200,000 property assessment letters were sent out. You probably got one. And the city published a map. It shows the median increase in assessed value for different city neighborhoods. So, for example, the low end is Tuxedo River Heights, a 6% increase. St. James, 14%. Charleswood, 15%. But the areas with the highest increase, North and East Kildonan, 18% increases is the median assessed value. Though you've been writing to us this morning, many of you saw even higher than that in those areas. CBC's Jim Agapito spoke to some people who live there.
It's Andrew Hretze. I'm a resident here in East Kildonan. Last year, my property assessment was $323,000 on an 1,100 square foot bungalow. It's basically the average for this area. This year, the city sent in the reassessment for $385,000. Okay? Now, if we wanted to, debate this, it's what the market value is, what the city assessed, okay? And there's the difference, because some of the homes go for another $15,000 than what is assessed today, this year's. It's a stable place. The homes are good, they're solid, and for young families, if homes are up for sale, Jim, they don't last long. They're gone in the 2 weeks. They're snapped right up. The schools are here, the infrastructure is here. So I guess the city figures the value for, this part of the city is good.
What does that increase then mean to you as a homeowner?
Well, it means that for the last 3 years, the city hasn't been truthful. And every homeowner will tell you, now we have hydro, the gas went up, the water went up, okay? So someone in the finance department, Mr. Jeff Bravati or whatever, sit down and say, how much on the ledger a homeowner can take for increases. I mean, we must be the most, the most that's getting inflation thrown at us. Right here, the homeowner. And from the city, I never see in that budget that they're saving money.
It's Peter Luckfield.
I'm curious, you said that you did receive your assessment, so I'm wondering,
Yes, I did.
How much did it go up?
I'd say maybe 15, 20,000, something like that, somewhere around there. My impression would be that maybe we've been undervalued, and now it's like an adjustment to bring everything where it should be. I'd love to hear their reasoning for why they decided that. It was because we've been, East Kelowna and North Kelowna's been lower than it should have been, that all of a sudden it's higher. It's more about what they do with the money rather than how much they charge you. Nothing's free and everything's escalating, everything is more expensive, your groceries, everything is more and more expensive. So it's makes sense that, of course, your taxes are going to go up. But for me, it's not just the amount of the tax, it's what are they doing with the money.
CBC's Jim Agapito out at the Sobeys in North Kildonan talking to some homeowners with some strong opinions. And you've been writing to us all morning about this. Jeff Berwati's been listening in, councillor for North Kildonan. He's on the chair of the city's finance committee. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So are you playing catch up in NK and EK? Have you undervalued there? People are suggesting that.
Again, it's not based on the city undervaluing. It's really based on market conditions. Home values in places like North Kildonan and Sun Valley and McLeod Avenue, McCade, in the last 2 years, the actual sale prices have literally increased that much. You don't have to take my word for it. If anybody wants to go and see what sales have been taking place, you can go to winnipeg.ca/residential preview program. winnipeg.ca/residential preview program. You go to that link, and there's a place where you can go see all the sales that have happened. It breaks the North Kildonan, East Kildonan, Elmwood area into smaller pieces, and you can actually go see residential sales that they are using to base your values.
So does that mean if we look at River Heights that we wouldn't find the same kind of increases in residential sales? Because River Heights, for example, went up by 6% if we compared the same period?
That's correct. So if you look in that, specifically in that 2-year window between 2025 assessed values, between 2023 assessed values and 2025 assessed values, yeah, that is accurate.
So help homeowners understand what an increase in an assessed value means when it comes time to pay their taxes.
Now, what the City of Winnipeg does to determine the taxes you pay, you apply a mill rate to the entire assessment roll. So, let's say, I'm making up a hypothetical value here, but let's say the entire assessment roll was $2 billion. If it's gone up after we've finished doing both the residential and the commercial, industrial, multifamily properties, the new value of the entire roll is $2.2 billion. The mill rate would be adjusted down so that a 0% property tax increase would be neutral. Then again, it's up to City Council to continue to pay for escalations on everything from snow clearing to building roads to fire protection services, wages, and then we add what we have done most years recently is added 3.5% to take on some of the huge increases we've had. So if you go up the average amount, across all property classes, and we haven't completed yet the assessment values on commercial properties, industrial properties, and even large multifamily properties. Once that's done, we'll have a final number later this year, and we'll know a citywide average, and that'll give you a better idea. If you're above the average, you're probably paying a little bit more. If you're below the average, my in-laws' condo in Transcona went up only a handful of thousands of dollars. I think it's $3,000 more. So they're going to be below the percentage average. So their taxes conceivably in 2027 could go down.
So to be clear, though, just so people understand this, when you do get your assessed property value like this, first, you can appeal it if you think that there's something wrong with the number. Second, though, if you accept it, you are paying more tax based on that number, correct?
Not automatically. Again, for example, my in-laws' condominium, it's gone up, but only a handful of percentage points. It's based on the average increase.
Got it.
Now, there's two different things. There's an appeal, and there's also this period right now called a preview. To do a formal appeal to go in front of our Board of Revision, you have to pay a filing fee, and it's a little more formal of a process. Right now, if you have an extenuating circumstance about your specific property, if you go and take a look, for example, at all the sales on that website I listed, if you go log into your own assessment portal, it will show you the properties that the city found most relevant in determining the value of your property. If you feel there's a reason why your property is inferior, there's a legitimate reason, like your foundation is really old. Those other houses all have brand new kitchens and bathrooms, and you have your 40-year-old pink appliances in your bathroom, for example. In those cases, you have an opportunity right now. You can go to winnipeg.ca/discuss my assessment. Discuss my assessment. That pulls up an Outlook 365 little template there. You can go in and request a 15-minute time window to speak to an assessor for free right now. And my recommendation would be to do a little homework before you do that. go and a lot of realtors right now. January is a quieter time.
But you can ask somebody and try to find out what things are selling for. I want to know, just because people mentioned this, a few people asked, what is the city doing to tighten its own belt and rein in spending? What's your answer to that? Some people were challenging, saying, I'm paying more, but what is the city doing?
Again, I mean, there are things that we're doing all the time. We're trying to get the lowest possible costs on snow clearing contracts, for example. We're trying to, again, slightly less popular, but in downtown, we were finding like so few parking transactions, for example, were being done at the meters. I appreciate, a lot of seniors now have challenges, using an app or using scratch tickets. But we were spending, many millions of dollars for new parking pay stations when almost nobody is using those to pay anymore. People are using the pay by phone app. We are trying to find creative ways to use AI within our operations. Things that first rounds of processing bill payments, for example, are being done with less people because we're able to use artificial intelligence to scan certain things. So we are always looking at ways to improve the city processes.
All right, Councillor Burwadi, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's North Kildonan Councillor and Finance Chair Jeff Burwadi. So discuss my assessment. That's where you want to go online to challenge something or to learn more, to read more. Mayor Scott Gillingham, by the way, spoke to CBC, said Winnipeg has some of the lowest property taxes in the country. But again, if you feel your assessment was unfair, you can get it appealed as well. Monday, we're going to talk to someone else from the city who's going to walk us more through the assessments that just went out to help us more understand that impact on our tax bills, because as you heard, it can be complicated. The comment of the morning goes to Joe Dworshak, who wrote into CBC saying our assessment went up over $100,000, not by $100,000, but it's over $100,000 now. But Joe says it's well above the value of our property. We've been checking others in the area. None of them had close to that increase. And this is the line of the morning. Is it because I mow the lawn too much? Maybe I should just put a broken down Camaro in the front yard. A lot of people writing in. Okay, in the next hour of Information Radio, after 8 o'clock, we are going to take you to Calgary. Will Pierre Poilievre still be leading the Federal Conservative Party by the end of the night? 2 Manitoba Conservatives will weigh in. One is at the convention in Calgary, loves Poilievre. The other says that he is, quote, there's nothing cooperative about him whatsoever, and is not a fan. So we're going to hear from both of them. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells with our headlines.
Well, some business leaders in Winnipeg wonder where all the momentum for reducing interprovincial trade barriers has gone. Kevin Selch, founder of Little Brown Jug, is among those. After the U.S. imposed tariffs, he appreciates Canada responding with new laws and provinces signing memorandums of understanding, but he hasn't seen much progress in making it easier to sell his product in other provinces. After years of delays, workers are now building a new RCMP detachment in Flin Flon. The new office will replace a headquarters that's been obsolete for years. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather. Minus 25, high minus 19. Sunshine, cold wind chills. Northbound Osborne before Confusion Corner, an issue there. Fire crews also at Ellison Colony with an issue there.
On cue.
My pen is missing.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. Kids in the Hall legend and TV director Bruce McCullough is back, this time with a one-man show called Dark Purple Slice. He'll tell you why he's always been drawn to finding the funny in the darker stuff of life and why gallows humor is so important.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Dave Seglins. The Conservative Party meets in Calgary today, and Pierre Poilievre will kick things off with a speech aimed at winning over party faithful and those who the party's trying to win over. The Conservative leadership coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Conservative delegates at the party's convention in Calgary are holding a crucial leadership review today. It's Pierre Poilievre's first major test since losing last spring's federal election to Mark Carney and the Liberals. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, how significant is it that this convention is taking place in Calgary?
Well, it's Pierre Poilievre's hometown, right? And going back to the founding of the modern Conservative Party under Stephen Harper, the city is still very much the one most closely associated with the Conservative movement in Canada. So if you were setting out to craft a comeback narrative for Pierre Poilievre, this is the friendliest room possible for his keynote speech tonight. From the buttons on the floor of the convention to the social media feeds of MPs past and present and Conservative influencers, messages seem to have been managed to suggest the same kind of overwhelming support across the Conservative base that first won Poilievre the leadership by a large margin back in 2022. The trouble is, public opinion polling is not offering him the same margins among the general population. The politics swirling outside this convention also turbulent, to say the least. The headlines as people flew into Calgary, all anxious about Alberta separatists looking for financial and political support from the Trump administration. Former Conservative leader Peter MacKay thinks Poilievre should tackle that head on.
He has to position himself as a leader in this country, positioning himself to champion the anti-separatist movement in Alberta, where he is from. That may also be a place where he can gain credibility in the rest of the country.
CBC News has been told, indeed, the leader will be speaking to that issue in his speech tonight.
All right, Janice, apart from the leadership vote, how is the Calgary location shaping the issues delegates are debating?
Well, if you look at the policy resolutions, they always include causes dear to social conservatives, issues that underlie Western alienation. In the past, Conservative conventions have been carefully managed to look like a big welcoming tent, but the rise of Donald Trump has emboldened movement conservatives worldwide. So we'll see if that bedrock of the conservative movement in Canada is more vocal and powerful at this event.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
More signs today that the Canadian economy is under strain. Statistics Canada says economic growth was flat in November. CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
If you put together the numbers we got today for November with the preliminary estimate from Statistics Canada, you see it is most likely now that the Canadian economy contracted through the fourth quarter. Now, weakness in the economy is what we had come to expect. It's what we're going to expect all the way through to next year. And this kind of mixed picture in terms of why it's so weak is an interesting one, but it's where we're going to be for a while, right around zero growth, maybe a bit above, maybe a bit below. The source of all of this contraction is not a surprise. It's all the sectors that are most sort of exposed to trade and to tariffs. Manufacturing fell 1.3%. Wholesale trade contracted more than 2%. That's the biggest contraction since April of last year, when the tariffs really first crashed into the economy. But consumer spending was up. Retail sales were up. Transportation and warehousing both up. And as I say, the advanced estimate is now looking at a 0.1% growth in December. But the fact remains that weakness is, and weakness remains, the defining characteristic of the Canadian economic landscape right now. And that's going to be something we're going to follow all the way through to the end of this year. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
U.S. President Donald Trump is ramping up trade tensions with Canada yet again, this time threatening to decertify and tariff Canadian-made aircraft. Trump singled out Bombardier, accusing Canada of refusing to certify several U.S.-made Gulfstream jets and warning of a 50% tariff if the issue isn't resolved. Bombardier is responding by pointing out it employs more than 3,000 people in the U.S. and supports thousands of other American jobs through suppliers. Aviation experts question whether Trump has the authority to ground Canadian aircraft, a move that could affect thousands flying in U.S. airspace. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is in Istanbul today for talks with his Turkish counterpart. Turkey's offered to mediate between Iran and the United States as tensions rise. Earlier this week, Washington moved several naval forces closer to Iran. Freelance reporter Dorian Jones is in Istanbul. Dorian, what have you been hearing?
Well, the message from the Turkish and the Iranian foreign ministers is that negotiation, talks is the only way out of this looming crisis, and that any conflict, any attack by the United States threatens not only to destabilize Iran, but the whole region. Now, both foreign ministers, speaking very much in coordination, didn't blame directly President Donald Trump. There was no words of attack against Trump, but rather Israel, with the Turkish foreign minister saying that Israel was trying to manipulate this crisis and manipulate Trump to attack Iran. That was a message that was also from the Iranian foreign minister as well. But despite them saying that the talks are ready, and the Iranian foreign minister said that we are ready to negotiate, he didn't say that they were ready to talk now. They said that it needs to be preconditions, that need to set out where the venue will be. Now, this will very much be seen by Washington as Iran's delaying tactics. And at the same time, the Iranian foreign minister also ruled out any ending of enrichment of uranium or the curtailing of its ballistic missile program. These are believed to be key demands of President Donald Trump. So while we're hearing talks and negotiation, it does seem that there's a big chasm between Tehran and Washington.
So, Dorian, what is at stake for Turkey in these negotiations?
So the fear from Ankar's perspective is that a destabilized Iran would have major impacts on Turkey and its interest in the Caucasus and Central Asia. And that's why Ankara really is doubling down on its diplomatic initiatives. The Turkish president spoke with Trump on Monday. He spoke with the Iranian president today, while the Turkish foreign minister has been holding meetings with key Trump figures within the administration.
Dorian Jones joining us from Istanbul. Thank you, Dorian.
You're welcome.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump says he will nominate former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh as the next chair of the Fed, replacing Jerome Powell when Powell's term ends in May. Trump has repeatedly criticized Powell for not cutting interest rates fast enough. Meanwhile, Mark Carney welcomed the choice, calling Warsh a fantastic pick to lead the world's most important central bank. The nomination requires Senate approval and could raise questions about the Fed's independence. A young Canadian math whiz at the center of an international manhunt continues to evade police, but has recently made contact with the CBC's Fifth Estate. Andian Medvedovic was accused of stealing tens of millions in cryptocurrency and is facing criminal charges in the Netherlands and the U.S., as well as a civil suit in Ontario. The Fifth Estate has uncovered details about him since he went into hiding, including where he might be now. Here's Ioana Remiliotis.
But let us just check this.
Our investigation took us to an apartment complex in Sarajevo, an address linked to a young Canadian math prodigy turned crypto fugitive. With the help of investigative journalists based in Bosnia, we spoke to the building manager, who told us police had been there recently too.
Someone already asked for him.
Here?
Yes.
Authorities are hot on Andian Medvedovic's trail. Medvedovic is accused of making off with $65 million US in cryptocurrency by exploiting glitches on trading platforms.
You see all of the transactions.
Kyle Armstrong is a former FBI agent who now works for TRM Labs. The company helps police investigate crypto cases, including Medvedovic's.
You know, the real sort of shocking thing about the case was the sophistication prior to the exploit.
Medvedovic graduated high school in Hamilton, Ontario when he was just 14 and completed a master's in pure mathematics by 18. A few months later, he pulled off his first alleged hack and disappeared. In the last 4 years, the Fifth Estate found he's traveled all over the world using fake names and a fake passport, and that he revealed a darker side online using racist and violent terms in his code. Medvedovic has turned down rewards to give back the money he allegedly stole, posting he'd simply done what anyone else could do. Investigators aren't buying it and say he's facing at least a decade in prison. But first, they have to find him. As for Medvedovic, he hadn't responded to any of our emails until a few weeks ago. I have only one defense to the allegations, he wrote. I'm a racist. Please include that. That's all. Thanks. Ioana Remiliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
And the Fifth Estate's investigation, Canada's Crypto Fugitive, airs tonight at 9 p.m. on CBC Television and GEM, or watch it anytime on YouTube. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Clear and cold this last Friday in January, folks. It is right now minus 25 in Winnipeg. Thanks for being with us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. This is CBC. Well, we're getting an earful from you about your property tax assessments, and we're going to read some of those comments out and play a call that we got as well coming up. We had Jeff Rawati, the councillor for NK, on just before 8 o'clock, so we'll stay on that story. Also, this half hour on the program, one says, quote, there's nothing cooperative about him whatsoever. The other says, quote, he says it like he sees it and listens carefully. Two takes on Pierre Poilievre from Manitoba Conservatives. The vote on his leadership for the federal party happens today. Locals will weigh in this half hour on the show, including one who is at that convention and up early in Calgary. So stay tuned. That's coming up on Information Radio. First, with more details on these stories we've been talking about, Heather Wells is in with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, some Winnipeggers are shocked by the city's assessment of the value of their homes. The city has been mailing out proposed assessment property values for the 2027 tax year. Brian Clark in North Kildonan says his house's estimated value is 31% higher, and he doesn't know how the city came up with that figure. Construction has started on a new RCMP detachment in Flin Flon. The new headquarters will replace an unusable existing RCMP building. Officers in Flin Flon have had to lodge their prisoners across the border in Creighton, Saskatchewan for more than a decade. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Quick look at the weather now with Abby.
Yeah, it's pretty cold outside. The wind chill is really hitting minus 40 across the regions, and we are in... At the airport right now, we are tracking minus 29, minus 28, and expect a high of minus 19 later with plenty of sunshine. But the wind chill is something you will deal with. That's the big story for you during your commute today.
All right, let's get to the commute news with Corey.
Yes, so there is a fire that crews are currently tending to, and at the intersection of Balmoral and Ellis, or Colony and Ellis, it kind of changes there. They're blocking the southbound curb lane and the westbound curb and middle lanes right now, so careful if you are going through that area. Also, there's a stalled vehicle blocking the northbound middle lane on Pembina at Kirkbridge, so look out for that. Also got a call about another illegally parked vehicle from Jim, northbound Osborne, just before Confusion Corner. He says it is, quote, wreaking havoc there, heading northbound just before Confusion Corner on Osborne. And finally, Doris also called eastbound Portage at Sharp. Emergency crews are blocking the curb lane, she said, so keep left to get around that. River Trail opened from the legislature all the way to Churchill Drive as well for folks looking for something to do this weekend. If you got anything else for me, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, that number 204-788-3093.
You are writing to us about assessments at CBC. A couple comments and a call here before our first guest. So Barb Anders says, I feel my assessment's accurate, but I don't have a fireplace anymore. So people are just looking at how to change things. Kirby Stevens saying, I'm curious why after 25 years at the same address, our tiny house is suddenly valued higher than my larger neighbors on either side. We were always under based on square footage and property size, but our adjustment went up by 15%. Jen Glenwright saying, my assessment went up $43,000 from last year. I'm a first-time homeowner. My property taxes are going up $100 a month, $1,200 a year in the past 5 years. I'm so confused about this. Christy Marie writing in, is this for real? How was this calculated? Why is the value almost 20% more than last time? Denise Emerson asking, did I include basements in the square footage? And finally, Kat Rother saying, did you do any renovations to warrant the jump? A while ago, she says, next door, the house was gutted to me. They redid it and it sold. And I wondered if they, assessed mine because of that renovated one. And they drastically then, she says, upped her assessment, presuming her house was in the same value category, but her home had not been renovated. So lots of questions about assessments. And then a call suggesting that maybe we just do away with them in the way we do them now.
It's David Camfield phoning. The whole way of funding municipal services through property tax assessment is archaic and really should be replaced. I mean, there's no direct connection between people's income and therefore their ability to pay and the way that these get assessed. A simple replacement with an income tax, just modifying the way that federal and provincial income tax is created in order to be able to account for municipal public services will be a much more rational way of raising the revenue that's needed for municipal public services. Municipal public services are really underfunded in Winnipeg and many other places. And so it would be administratively, once you made the switch, much easier. You wouldn't have to go through this whole rigmarole of these assessments of property values.
You want to read more about the city's justification, what they've said, and how to appeal if you should want to, 788-3205 to weigh in, and online on our CBC site for that info. Well, my next two guests do not agree on what the future of Pierre Poilievre should be. Today in Calgary, federal Conservatives will cast ballots that will decide if the leader will keep his job. In a moment, we'll be live with a Manitoba Conservative who's there and supports Poilievre. First, though, let's go to Lac du Bonny, in that area, a voter who votes Conservative, Stéphane Bouderlique. He's in his 60s, a safety educator and avid hunter, but he is not a fan of the current leader.
Good morning, Marcia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So as a person that has voted conservatively in this country, what do you think of the leadership of Pierre Poilievre?
Well, I think this is going to be the test of time for him right now because of his leadership that we've seen in the past. We see the surge in popularity in Mark Carney, and we see, other conservatives that are tired with his leadership and crossing the floor. Also, I've noticed that there is a bit of a softening of Pierre's stance lately, and I'm just wondering if it's because he knows that he's, on the cusp of being replaced. Maybe that might be a good thing for the Conservatives because, his rhetoric has just been a non-cooperative type of rhetoric that he's been putting on in the House of Parliament.
So it's interesting because, of course, he would say that Conservatives aren't crossing the floor because of his leadership. How do you personally feel about Pierre Poilievre as a leader, Stéphane?
I think that he's more, just because he's in the Progressive Conservative Party, he's going to right away say, what the other parties are saying aren't right, and there is no way of, coming to common ground on anything or even putting forward any type of ideas that are going to help the Canadian public per se. I just do not think that is conducive to good governing and not way that, a person can go and say, well, you know what, this man is going to be for me. Now, I traditionally vote for the person in my riding. If they can do a job for the riding, then I think that's the one that I'm going to go for. I don't normally vote for the person, like the one that's been voted for the leader of the party. I just don't like that. I like voting for the person that is going to do the job for me in my riding. Right now, it's James Bazin.
Yeah. So right now you're supporting the Conservatives, but that's more to do with Bazin than maybe the leader of the party, as you're saying.
That's correct, yeah. And I think he's done a very good job for our area, and I'm going to be going with him again, and I don't see anything that would change my mind on that aspect.
Yeah, in a moment we're going to hear from someone who's actually at the vote, the leadership vote right now, and they're going to join us. They are a Pierre Poilievre supporter. They actually wrote a piece recently, Dorothy Doby did, and I want to read you a quote because it's about Pierre Poilievre. She writes, quote, "He says it like he sees it. He doesn't equivocate or obfuscate. Generally, he knows more about a topic than his questioner. He listens carefully, doesn't interrupt, and often asks for clarification." She goes on to write about Pierre Poilievre, quote, "He is misunderstood by some who interpret his manner as acerbic or harsh, but it's just who this slightly nerdish guy is, a square, a straight-ahead Fred, but also a marshmallow inside who has to maintain that austere exterior for the sake of equilibrium," end quote.
Well, I think you can take something like that and base that on just about any person in the government where they are going to tell you the truth, whether or not you like it. That's, for the person to come about. But I don't think that that's going to really, sway the the other voters of whether or not he should continue in the job.
You had written about Pierre Poilievre as well when you were talking with me, and one of the things that you said is leadership requires adaptability. And tell me a little bit about how you feel about how he's led the party so far. Have you not seen that?
I haven't, because I haven't heard what he would do with the trade negotiations with the U.S. I think that he would more align with the U.S. than he would with the Canadian public, and just to get a deal and to soften the rhetoric that's going on. I don't think he would be able to do that. In other words, we see Mark Carney, who is saying, well, okay, if the U.S. wants to do that, we'll go other places. And I haven't heard anything from Pierre as to what he would do or where he would go, and what kind of trade deals that he would put on with other countries instead of the U.S. I don't see any solutions coming from him. I just hear the drum banging and that this is wrong, and there's nothing cooperative about him whatsoever. I think it's time for a new blood into the leadership of the party, and I do hope that the delegates do see that and they do find somebody that can actually lead us like in the past.
Who might have been a favorite leader for you that represented you better in the past since you've raised that?
Well, I really like Stephen Harper. He was a good leader in the past, and you can see by his record that he was in there for a bit. And I would like to see somebody like him back in again. He did tell the truth, and he did easing up on the budget, or not easing up on the budget, but on the deficit. And he was there for the Canadians to actually move forward.
Anything to add?
No, I think it's going to be quite the leadership race. He's going to be, if he doesn't get more than 70% of the vote, then I think that he should think about finding somebody, a replacement for him.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Marcia, and have a good morning.
Stéphane Bourderly, Conservative voter who lives east of Lac du Bonny. Now, I mentioned we're going to reach a Manitoba Conservative who's in Calgary for the Pierre Poilievre leadership vote. That's Dorothy Doby, a former Progressive Conservative MP and Parliamentary Secretary. It was her piece, actually, on Poilievre in the Winnipeg Sun last November. I was quoting there when I talked to Stéphane. Dorothy, you're up early, and we thank you. You're wearing your Pierre Poilievre button already?
I certainly am, and it's a lot earlier here in Calgary than it is in Winnipeg.
What do you like about him? You heard some of Stéphane's critiques. Why do you support Pierre Poilievre as the leader?
Got a couple of reasons. One, he's very sincere, and I mentioned that in the article, but I really do mean it. He says really what he means, and also I think he's very smart. He really does know what's going on, and he looks very carefully into the issues and analyzes them. And I think that just floors some people because he's way ahead of them. And the fellow before said that he didn't have any ideas. Well, he's got a lot of ideas he's proposed, but it's like just talking into the wind right now because everything's about this new hero. However, we don't need new heroes. We need people that are going to get behind us and do the hard work it takes domestically. Never mind internationally, we have to deal with that. But domestically, we've got a mess on our hands. We got to fix it. And I think Pierre can do it.
You describe him in your written piece as misunderstood. So where does the Pierre that you see come across to others? Like, is it a worry that maybe that warmth that you see somehow is maybe not coming across en masse? People do use words like harsh, or they don't necessarily trust him.
Well, I think part of that is that he's been vilified very successfully, as parties do, and they've got opposition that's strong. I don't think that they're not representing the real Pierre. I've had people tell me the most bizarre things about what he supposedly believes when in print everywhere it says, I'm not this, I'm not that, I don't believe in this, I do support this. And it's just not being heard because he's been very well painted into a corner as being some kind of an evil right-wing whatever, which he's definitely not. He's far more progressive, I think, even than Brian Mulroney was back in his day.
What's the mood at the convention in terms of how unified the party feels? What's your sense? I know you've just arrived on the ground there and Poilievre speaking tonight, but what can you tell us so far?
Well, it's very full. We've got, I heard 3,500 and I've heard of 4,000. I'm not sure what exact number is, but it's packed there, and people are really enthusiastic. Everybody's wearing Pierre buttons. There's probably some dissenters in the crowd. There always are. But I think that he's going to pass with a very high margin. Look, we're looking at what's going on around the country, and it's not a happy place right now. And his job is to oppose. He does that extremely effectively, maybe too effectively for some people. And the people here who really believe in a change, after 10 years, you need a change in government. I don't care who's in there, whether it's us or somebody else. The mood is really good. It's really high. It's really positive.
What's the percentage that you think that he needs to get tonight to hang on to his leadership?
Well, the rules are the rules, so he'll get those. But I think to make people feel good, it would be nice to see over 80%, and that would be a fair number. And I'm sure we will do better than that.
When you're talking about, in your view, how he's misunderstood, you hear people quoting things that he hasn't said, for example, and they paint him as far right, and you find he's more progressive than people give him credit for in many ways. Do you have an example of that, to Dorothy, in terms of his belief or policy that you want to give as an example?
Well, all the usual tropes out there, that he's anti-gay, that he's anti-abortion, that he's that's the sort of thing that they talk about conservatives. None of those are true, and he's stated unequivocally that those aren't true.
When it comes to specifics on trade, what do you see that he would do as your party leader, or ultimately, if your party should form government with the United States, that Mark Carney hasn't been able to achieve?
Well, I think he might take a different approach. Certainly I don't fault Mark for going to China, for example. I know many, many people do. And I think it's probably the only policy issue that I don't totally agree with the party on, but that's a learning curve. But there is only one thing you can do, and that's to get your people out there and say, hey, Canada's open for business. Does he need to go personally? Well, somebody's got to stay home and mind the store. And what I see right now is that I don't know how Mark Carney is getting anything done at home, because he's been away to, something like 21 countries in the last 9 months. You've got to have some time for the domestic issues that are haunting everybody here. So probably a big emphasis from him personally, locally. And you send your ministers and the people that are trained to do the job of building trade relationships and building real trade relationships, not just memoranda of understanding, which don't have any value at all until they're actually turned into an agreement. Making sure those agreements are signed and that they're secure. And also you've got to work with the United States somehow, because come on, it's more than 79%, I think, of our trade is with the U.S. You're not going to replace that overnight. Great, I absolutely agree. We have to build better relationships, and we have to do more to reach out and stop relying and getting fat and lazy on our American neighbors to the south of us. But I think that we also have to be very realistic and say, come on, we've got to have some relationship here. It's for the long term. Donald Trump isn't going to be there forever, and we need to have decent relationships. And just one more thing. I don't know if you know, but I'm just the immediate past president of the International Peace Garden. And I think that it represents what we should really be thinking about in Canada, trying to understand our neighbors, not Trump. That's a different story. He's a different kind of guy. But we've got neighbors that we rely on. We've got relatives, we've got family, we've got friends who are
at the human level.
Across the border. At the human level. We held a Little Hands Across the Border event last summer. People were flocking there to say, yeah, we still think and honor each other. I think that's a much more, positive way to go. And that's what I would hope Pierre would do.
Dorothy, thank you very much for outlining why you think that Pierre Poilievre is the right one to take Canada in that direction. And tonight, starting with your party. Appreciate your time from Calgary. Enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thanks so much, Marcy. Good to talk to you.
Dorothy Doby live with us, wearing her support button for Pierre Poilievre. He will speak tonight. The former Progressive Conservative MP in Manitoba, Dorothy is, and Parliamentary Secretary. She's in Calgary. Pierre Poilievre will face a leadership vote from his party tonight. Well, just time to slide in a final clue here. All week we've been giving you a chance to solve mysteries, for a chance to head out on February 7th to the WSO Murder in F Major with Murdoch Mysteries. And so see if you know what this is about.
He was the first man to escape over the wall of Stony Mountain Penitentiary and found a perfectly good hiding place, a log cabin near Ericsdale that he built himself. Email win@cbc.ca with your answer.
So who was he? Who was that person? If you get it right, you'll be entered in our contest. Now, we're going to close the contest today at 1 o'clock this afternoon. No more emails. A winner will be drawn randomly, and on Monday, they will be announced on the show live with Murdoch Mystery Star Daniel Maslany, who's going to be joining Corey, who's guest hosting for me. So that's all coming up on Monday. A couple traffic things before 8:30 here. Northbound Osborne, before Confusion Corner, we've had a problem there with an illegally parked car. A fire in progress, Ellison Colony. There's an issue there. Emergency vehicles, also curb lane eastbound Portage near Sharp, and then northbound Pembina at Kirkbridge, a stalled vehicle in the north lane. If that's updated or changed any of those situations, 788-3093, please call. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. It's the final Friday of January. Lots of sunshine today, still lots of cold. A high of minus 19. Right now, we're at minus 25. Some Winnipeggers are shocked by this city's assessment of the value of their homes. The city has been mailing out proposed assessed property values for the 2027 tax year. Brian Clark lives in North Kildone, and it's one of the areas seeing the highest increases on property prices. He says his house's estimated value is 31% higher.
Our water bills have gone up like crazy. Everything is just going up, and I feel that because if I get a 31% increase in 1 year, we're paying taxes off of a number that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand where they get the number from.
The value estimate is based on market conditions as of last April. The city says while the property value figures in its tax calculations, an increase does not mean a higher tax load for homeowners. Some business leaders in Winnipeg wonder where all the momentum for reducing interprovincial trade barriers has gone. Kevin Selch is the founder of Little Brown Jug. After the U.S. imposed its tariffs, he appreciates Canada responding with new laws and provinces signing memorandums of understanding, or MOUs. But he hasn't seen much progress in making it easier to sell his product. Selch wants his beer available in Ontario liquor stores.
Getting on the LCBO shelves is very important. And so I think the question is, you can sign all the MOUs in the world that you want, but unless you get access to the shelves, you're not really getting market access.
A new report from the International Monetary Fund suggests if all the regulations were lifted, Manitoba's real GDP would rise by 12.2% over the long run. The Premier says he is willing to meet with the College of Registered Nurses to discuss concerns about licensing internationally trained applicants. The college points to a case where a nurse in Lynn Lake was stripped of her license for administering a nearly fatal dose of fentanyl. The nurse had been trained in India and had not practiced as an RN for 13 years. The college wants the government to tighten the rules. Wab Canoe says there will be lessons to learn from this case, but his government relaxed the rules to boost the number of healthcare workers.
A report like this is certainly tough, but you can't discard the years of people advocating for this particular college to open up more opportunity for nurses to work in our province.
The college says the incident might have been avoided had the registrant been scrutinized. Well, after years of delays, workers are now building a new RCMP detachment in Flin Flon. This new detachment will replace a headquarters that has been obsolete for years. CBC's Eric Westhaver is in Flin Flon.
Construction has started on a new RCMP detachment in Flin Flon. The new headquarters is being built 2 blocks away from the existing one uptown. That office is aging and has had mold issues. The cells inside have been unusable for years. Officers have had to move their prisoners to the detachment in Creighton, Saskatchewan. Sergeant Paul Meneg says new RCMP buildings need to be built with modern policing needs in mind.
Most attachments, you're going to have your office space, going to have an area for cells, interview rooms. Like there's a whole host of factors that basically it's your wish list that you want to put into a building, but really for policing needs, there's requirements that go into the design of these buildings.
The project was first started in 2019, but it's been delayed. It's now expected to open late next year. Eric Westhaver, CBC News, Flin Flon.
The city of Steinbach is considering a plan to restart a public transit system. That idea has been sitting idle ever since it was first recommended in 2006. The Southeast Equity Coalition, a group of 20 service providers, says it is ready to get that transit system started in Steinbach. The chair, Gay Boys, says the city's growing population demands public transportation.
The need is just being magnified because the city's has grown. So the physical distance from one area of the city to the other is much larger. The community is much more diverse.
The coalition surveyed more than 1,200 people over the summer. 99% say they believe Steinbach should have public transit. The idea is part of a broader community plan currently before Steinbach City Council. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
From our news department for the week, thanks to Alana Cole, Aaron Broman, Joni Nicolo, Megan Ketchison, and Heather Wells. Our YouTube producer, Darren Mirage. Our producers, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Our reporters in unit, Shanley Vidal and Jim Agapito, as well as associate producers, Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, Sierra Sanders, Sophia Peralta Barone, Jenna Badasso, Chloe Friesen, and Zubina Ahmed. All right, Corey, take it away.
Southbound Archibald, just past Marion, there's a collision blocking all the southbound lanes on Archibald. As well, a fire has blocked some lanes on Balmoral and Ellis. They're blocking the southbound curb and westbound curb and middle lanes. And that legally parked car northbound Osborne is now gone at Confusion Corner.
Abby.
We are locked into stable, clear, but bitter conditions today. Frostbite this morning, the wind chills and the valleys of -40 across southern Manitoba and up north. A bit milder, but we're seeing snow there. We still see wind chills in the valleys of -37. Winnipeg shivering, -29 at this time. Wind chill close to -40. The hair is definitely heavy, Marcy.
That's the sound. Breathe in. All right, thanks, Abby. Thanks, everyone, for being with us on this cold week. Things will turn over the weekend with some snow and warmer temperatures, but yeah, some strong winds still. Check out the River Trail. Corey's been mentioning it all morning, but it is fully open, so that's pretty cool. Pardon the pun. And yeah, stay warm. We'll talk to you again on Monday with another edition of Information Radio. Big thanks to Corey, who's going to be guest hosting for me, and I will be back here on Tuesday. You've been joining all of us, our whole team at Information Radio on CBC. Thanks for listening, everybody, on 89.3 FM. The Current is next.